Right, we're here for another episode of Snake and Banter. Obviously, we're still in the off-season, technically. It is still the roster mania. It hasn't been the craziest roster mania. We've had a few interesting ones. Speaking of which, obviously, return guest fl0m here, who has been on the show many times. And now he gets a chance, except this is edited, of course, to potentially cancel me. Because if you don't know, when I did that Blast Core stream, and when I got to the venue even the day before, like, he was streaming like at the spot next to me. So I just thought, well, you know what? It's lonely having to just talk to yourself for like 5 hours. I'll just pop on a stream. And I noticed every time I came on, initially, that was the sentiment, like, oh, cool, someone to talk to. And then what would happen is, because I just do digression, geopolitical reference, I could sort of feel when, as they say, the temperature in the room changes fl0m. And I could feel him get nervous. It'd be like, well, anyway, I'll see you later. You've got to run now. I think the guy's ready.
I was trying to get your ass out of there, man. You kept going. You just keep going. Like,
yes, that's what I do. That is what I do.
I'm so down for this. And I'm like, all right, he's still going. I was like, there's a clutch. He just had a 3K and Thorin's just talking about like Russia. Like, I'm like, what happened? Like, what the fuck?
All good. It's all good. That's the thing. You've figured out the secret, fl0m. Oh, I'm a really cool guy. In small doses. You've got to keep that dosage really right. If you OD, it gets out of control. You know, if you haven't had enough, you go, I sort of miss him in a way. But anyway.
That's why I pretend to be busy when you ask me. You know what I mean? Just like,
okay, I'll see how it is. All right. Okay.
Like, yeah.
Okay. Using that politeness. That's sweet. That is the British way, to be fair. Okay. Right. You're going to start with the spiciest take of the show, though. So actually, I think people, this will be interesting. We're going to start with the bad section. Unsurprisingly, where a lot of the spicy takes are. What is bad at the moment, fl0m? What don't you like?
My bad take is that MongolZ losing mzinho and Senzu is basically just going to completely derail and not kill Asian CS, but make Asian Counter-Strike as a whole irrelevant for, I mean, at least the foreseeable future. I mean, we couldn't predict when MongolZ came up, so how am I supposed to predict when anybody is going to fix it, right? Like, you lost the top 5, top 10, albeit, in my opinion, skillful riflers in the entire world, and you now have lost one of the best anchors in the world. And they were both on your team, and you propped up Asian CS as a whole with the results of your team. We don't even know really why you left. Like, not really. Like, we all have our own ideas. There's like little rumors, burnout, money, like whatever it is. Like, there's all these things that I feel like circulate, but nothing definitive. And we just have like this, at least me, I have this taste in my mouth of feeling like I'm not going to get to see an Asian Counter-Strike team that's relevant for the foreseeable future. And it's not even like they're going to a top 10 team. They're going to actually be in the doldrums of Draculan for like the next 6 months. And there's nothing wrong with Draculan, but that's not where I want to see Senzu, mzinho, Simple playing Counter-Strike. I don't care like what. And so, yeah, I fucking hate it. I understand, you know, people got to make decisions for themselves, but I feel like MongolZ is going to just completely be irrelevant. No matter who they pick up, the shining star of Asian Counter-Strike to me that was super fun to watch, very unique, just kind of like dulled out. They weren't practicing different things. I don't know. It all just fucking sucks. Like I hate what the MongolZ situation has turned into, basically.
Yeah, you're definitely taking the glass half empty sort of viewpoint on this. I'm gonna go the opposite way. I'm gonna actually go glass half full on this, in that it'll help BC game enough that it actually makes them really interesting. Okay. I definitely still can concur with the idea.
Are you gonna watch them, Maui?
I'm not gonna probably watch them for the first 2 tournaments because I'll be covering tier 1 events, which they will not be at. But in time, I think that there's probably more room to grow with this BC game team than what I'm seeing right now from the MongolZ, because I saw them already kind of sputter out in the last season. I also kind of hated the way that they would approach tournaments. I feel like that's something that could have easily held Senzu or mzinho back, the idea that they went to PGL Astana with 0 practice. That's just such a ridiculous way for a tier 1 team to conduct themselves. To go to a LAN that's like $1 million, basically the same prize pool as a major. In fact, I think it actually might equal the major in terms of prize pool when you involve club share too. So for them to do that as regularly as they did, to be trying to bring up this Cobra Zera player that I'm not really seeing any light for. I don't think there's a light at the end of that tunnel. Actually, I think he's going to just kind of maybe stagnate, maybe grows like 5%, 10% more, but he's not going to be a top 20 player. So I'm not really too concerned about him. And so I'm happy to see mzinho get to reunite with Senzu. That should help them in terms of being able to just bring the team together like culturally a little bit more, because Senzu looked like an odd man out on Passion UA. He just kind of played on his own, didn't really have a way to play within the system.
Sorry.
Say what?
Sorry, I just had to say that whole roster looked like they were just like
everybody.
That was like a spawn in. That was Esports Manager 2026 roster. I just want to say that shit was not real. I was here for it when they signed Senzu, but that shit looked like each person was dropped in there, spawned in there, and they've never played.
Put it it looks more like HLTV fantasy lineup than it does a real roster.
Randomizer.
Yeah,
totally.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, you only have a certain amount to spend, and so you put all your points in Senzu.
Yeah, exactly.
And then who the hell are these other guys that you got? Some underrated players, I guess. I'll take the Asian point too, though. That's probably my. I don't think you're going to see any stage 3, stage 2 berths anymore for Asian teams, because Mongols would give them those spots given their playoff runs at multiple majors. So that's kind of going to hurt. That's obviously going to hurt. It almost feels like now you have a little bit of I guess it's going to be a upcoming power struggle between Tai Lu and the Mongols, which just doesn't feel right. That just doesn't sound right when I say it, that those two teams are going to be battling for the #1 Asian team now. But that's the reality of it when you lose players that are that good, because 910 has had a nice surge this year, but he is, I would say, he can't do it on his own. That's just the easy.
Yeah, he struggled in playoffs too. I mean, he's such a great opper, but that's where he always just kind of fell a little short, right? Is like he could get you through a group stage, honestly, even versus the best teams. And I'm not saying he's really a choker. He's just still MongolZ is still so young. Like that whole core is like still so young that I think, and I've always had the take that I feel like opping is the hardest like role to just basically progress. So for 910, I don't hold it against him at this point. The worst, to add to my bad take, I hope 910 gets poached at this point.
Yeah, why not?
I don't want to see. I actually don't want to see him try to drag this roster across with whatever new player they come in, because I agree with you, Maui. I don't think CobraZera has shown anything where I see flashes in the pen, but that we see a lot of players like that. Like I've seen Jacob have pop-off games, and that's not to throw shade at him. It's just like, but also nobody says Jacob is the future of FaZe, and he's supposed to be replacing one of the top 20 like players in the world. They don't mention him in that way, where CobraZera is, and it's just like, yeah, it's just not there. And you don't have that veteran experience of like, oh, well, you have this guy that can help him learn. There's no like Kerrigan type situation there. There's nothing. Like it's just them. And yeah, I feel like 910 now is probably sitting there going, well, shit, what do I do? Like, am I just supposed to carry this team like all the way through group stages as we get another young gun in here that's unproven, probably from like Warriors or Huns or something like that, and then they're just, I don't know. They're probably not making like stage 3 of any major. They're going to be outside of top 20. They're going to be outside of invites. They're going to basically be relegated completely out of the tier 1 circuit. And that means 910, one of the best operators, in my opinion, who at least I would put him in the top 10 in terms of pure individual talent. And he's not going to be involved in any tier 1 tournament probably in the next few months. We'll probably see him at the major, and that's about it. I mean, that's just a shame. So like at this point, I'm almost cheering for 910 to get poached. Liquid, hit him up. What's up? Forget Jorko. I don't know. Sorry. Don't ruin your career. I lied. Sorry.
No, here's the thing. Also, by the way, as usual, I even know the way Maui's brain works. Even if he didn't consciously think this, here's a real reason why he took. Because I was thinking when he was going, I'm going to go half full. Like, what? You think it's good, the Mongols' future? But I noticed he immediately, like mzinho, he was like, well, off one sinking ship onto the other one. All he was thinking of was this, fl0m, was that when they do get that inevitable PGL invite to one of the tournaments, or actually it'd have to be an ESL event, like a medium-sized AIM, the Chinese one or whatever. Maui knows that when his core stream watches the game, they already get the viewership for Simple anyway. Now he's going to get all the Mongolian viewers too. He already knows in his brain that's going to be box office, and he knows that's the game to tune in on. So it's all good. It's all good. I see you, Maui. Right. Anyway,
I think the thing is actually, Thorin, for this take though, because this is not really as involved with fl0m, of course, but it's something that's continuing from the hot take show we had, where you talked about BC Game versus 100 Thieves. I said I would have to wait. So this is more so for fans that watch that episode and want to watch this one. We had a little back and forth there, fl0m, where it was just that who was going to be better, 100 Thieves or BC Game into this upcoming season.
It's looking a bit better for me now, right?
Gives me I think BC Games got it now. Yeah, I think BC Games got it. I was thinking if they're gonna get some like prime taps level player, nah, I'm not gonna buy it. But I'm buying in. I'm buying in on BC Game.
No, I'm with you. That's why I even said it had to be like a Louts at least level type person. Again, if it ended up being like a random fifth, who cares at that point? Like they've just rug pulled you. Also, by the way, let's since we're addressing hot take point made, let's just put all of our cards on the table. Right, Maui, normally when Kassad does a mad take, it's just him sitting around in a cave thinking up something totally insane about CS. I'm sorry, I'm just saying it right now, Maui. If I had to like gun to my head, someone said to me, Kassad makes a really edgy MongolZ. His take was that they wouldn't even be top 20, which by
the end of the year.
Which at the time, there was no rumour that anyone was leaving the team. Yeah, exactly. That, and then like 2 days later or something, bro, maybe 3, this news comes out that it's already rumoured and then immediately announced that mzinho. That just makes it sound like Kassad had some like inside info we didn't have. And he decided to use that to bait us into a hot take that he would be right about. By the way, that's how desperate this man is after that Falcons debacle. Now he's just trying to engineer AstroTurf hot takes that he wins on to get some W's back in the column. Give it up, bro. Give it up. Even though by the way, you almost certainly have won that one now. Like, if I'll use that to talk about now, yeah, you know what, Kassad? Yeah, they're probably not going to be top 20 now, mate. They're going to be irrelevant because one of the worst things is, actually, if you were to look at their team, because of how young mzinho is and how inexperienced, if there was actually one player on their team might have been able to develop further in the coming years and fill in a little bit of the gap of Senzu, it was mzinho. He actually has really shit hot him if no one's ever seen. Like, his deagle's sick, his fucking first bullet's nice. It's actually even one of the things I think is a bummer, because I'll start on just what this does to Mongols. I think it's really sad. Look, the worst thing was obviously losing Senzu, but let's tie this in, right? I don't think people have realised this detail. I saw online that there was actually a comment from mzinho that the reason he joined this team is because he was asked by Senzu. Guys, wait a minute, that can't be, because here's what I need you to hear from BC Game to make this fine for Mongols. I need to hear, actually, it's just a coincidence that Senzu's here. Maybe that's why they thought of me, but actually BC Game just contacted me and said, do you want a really big salary? And I thought, yeah, you know what? I've done what I can. No, mate, if it's not, think about what that implies. That means mzinho has no problem with Senzu. That means there was no drama with him, at least, in their team. I'm going to go one further. We all saw that thing where there was a tournament that they went to. I forget, it might have been a PGL or something, or CAC. You know, there was that tournament where they were like stood behind BC Game for a game, or Passion UA, one of the two. I think maybe it was only on Passion UA.
The players were like watching Passion UA.
Yeah, but they were like stood as though they were like mates, you know, like waiting from the finish. That implies to me that whatever the drama is, because we're never going to get to know, sadly, like you say, fl0m, whatever it was either with the org or genuinely Senzu just didn't want to be in their team. The reason that's such a bummer to me is I still think if there was any possible chance Senzu could be in, this was the off-season where you just all sit around a table and go, look, at the end of this conversation, can we all agree we all have to be in the same team again, whatever it takes to get there, you know, whatever you need, whatever we need, whatever's happened. The idea they couldn't do that, because I'm with you, actually, fl0m. I don't just think this is a bummer. I think this is basically going to make Mongols irrelevant, unfortunately. Like, they're just going to go down to being, like, at the level, fully enough, of Asian Tick Tai Lu. You know, you can get the odd upset, you can have a map where someone plays well, but you're not ever going to be. Think about, I always tell people this, because of the last, like, 6 to 8 months or so, people have forgotten how insane they were just before Senzu left. They'd already had that, like, fluke run to the final of the Austin Major, but after that, they were cooking that second season. They were in, like, every semi, they were in finals, they won a tournament. Like, it actually looked like this isn't just going to be a relevant team. They're going to be, like, a top 5 team for, like, the next 3 years or something. You're looking at their team, you're like, Senzu's going to be top 20 every year. If 9-10 gets his shit together, he could probably creep in at 20th. The future trajectory for their team in Asian CS would have been so different. Whereas now it feels like you've completely kneecapped that. And like, who knows if he'll ever come back, because as you've seen, there aren't any more Senzu's, bro. He, in their region, relative to their region, he's a prodigy. He's just like an exceptionally good player for that level. So I think it's a massive bummer. And I'll even throw in another angle for you that I think also really sucks, which is I actually get the sense as well. And here's the difference. When it was just the Senzu one, as people did, you could do all the speculation. Ooh, was it like an argument he had? Was he being a diva because he was a star? Was it something like cheating or skins? Now that mzinho's left as well, I'll tell you an angle that I'm going to throw in here that people aren't going to like. You know when Mongols got really good, and then when they won like the EWC and they were on that rise. You heard all that news like, wow, now the government's helping them and they're giving them resources and funds. Right, I'm just going to go ahead and guess it. I will bet before that whole government thing, they were on probably the lowest salary of any top 10 team, easily. Like, I would guess they were probably on like a few thousand.
Them in Eternal Fire. Them in Eternal Fire, I think, were pretty
even then they were on Aurora, though, so they probably had more themselves. But
yeah, after they got to Aurora, they definitely...
So I'll go one further. I doubt the government money's crazy money. In fact, I would go ahead and guess, by the way, since MongolZ has been a team around, like, 10th, 12th sort of, they're probably still the lowest paid team. So unfortunately, I actually imagine this actually implies that a reason why Senzu and now mzinho's left is, I'm going to guess you get a pretty good salary in fucking BC game, man. That probably is like 20k a month or something. That's probably like some big fucking money. So that's another bomber, because if you think about it, actually, it implies what you said, fl0m, isn't even that crazy. If other big orgs want to come and get 9-10 as an AWPer or Blitz as an shot, mate, these guys probably leave, because why wouldn't you? If the money's really that different and there's not any more like cool, let's all stay as one country, one team and do it as the boys, if you're just going to be a pro and be a mercenary, people will leave at that point. As far as I know, they all speak English too. Like, I've seen 9-10 do interviews, I'm pretty sure.
I think their English is still a bit rough, to be honest. I think that's why Techno does.
Listen, for 20k, they'll learn. They'll learn.
Listen, I'm not saying they won't figure it out.
You can take classes a little bit.
Exactly.
I want to roll it back a little bit. You guys trust the brain trust of Taz Electronic Magus that much that you think that no matter what, this BC game team is going to work? I want to say
they'll replace somebody. They'll replace somebody if it doesn't work.
Magic is the brain trust that you are putting.
No. Now we just said it there. Believe it or not, I know why Maui's doing it, because he's actually figured out what I basically took. By the way, you can watch these shows. I've got a chronicle of me doing it for years. I told everyone, by the way, when they had the scoffed Falcons 2 years ago with Snappy and Magisk and SunPayus, I told everyone back then, you do realise it's inevitable this will one day be one of the best teams in the world, because they not only have like the desire to spend, they have unlimited funds. So, as you saw, the real secret with that one is this. I always said the real reason they were fucked with the original Falcons lineup is because they didn't get Nico, if you remember. So they didn't have the true superstar. As soon as you had Nico, it was just, that's the domino meme, mate. Nico signing is how a year and a half later you get to them winning the major. That's just because once you have Nico, you can get MongolZ. Once you have Nico, MongolZ, you can get Kiesa. You know what I mean? At that point in time, you can get out. And that's even how you got Carrigan at the end, right? That was why it was a Hail Mary fame too. I actually think BC game, if you're doing the dominoes, they're like on the second domino now. Having Simple's not bad. The problem he has is he's not Nico, right? He's not Simple at the moment. He's just but that'll get like medium players like this to come. The key thing for me is now you got Senzu. He's actually just a bona fide talent, mate. As far as we know, it's not to do with in the game why he has to play for this team. There's some other bizarre reason. I will say, the one thing that makes me not 100% certain there wasn't any drama in MongolZ is why are the two teams he's on passing you away in BC game? What? There's no G2 or Liquid or FaZe wants this guy. Give me a break. So that does make me think there's a tiny reason that might be a bit of a flaw, let's say. But that's good for BC game. You're basically picking up an overqualified player there. The main one for me is the Magisk one, right? This is what I'm with Maui, though. If the Magisk one doesn't work, it's obviously a gamble. He's never been like a true LAN IGL. But say that doesn't work, there's plenty of IGL surely you can slot in with what will then be a half-decent core. You know what I mean? Like, let's be real. Just simple mzinho and Senzu is not bad. Like, that's a potentially top 10 core right there. Little bit of
cheeky hot take. BC game will unretire Glaive. They'll just honestly they'll take him out of the coaching spot on 100 Thieves if Magic doesn't work.
So that's actually how they beat 100 Thieves. They're going to actually buy out 100 Thieves and bring him to IGL. Then
comes full circle.
Exactly. There we go. That's actually the move.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, I think you bring up a good point with the infinite kind of money glitch that BC game will have access to because they're just a fucking literal online.
Bro, I'll even give you the angle. You know, people keep making fun of the BC game CEO or owner, whatever he is. You know, because he keeps saying because it sounds silly. Because if you say, "Hey, I asked Doc to join," that people think that's like me saying, "Look, I've got the money, Doc. Do you want to join my scrim?" And he'd be like, "Well, no, I want to be in a pro team." No, I'll tell you what that is, fl0m. I think I can read between the lines. I think that's advertising. What he's actually saying there is, bro, I've got infinity money to spend. So, and notice what he's doing is he didn't just say donk. He's basically now said, I've asked every top core and every top player. That's just a message. Anyone out there who's a top player, I'll pay you fuck tons to join. And I definitely, that's actually pretty, in a way, if he's at all on the same wavelength as me, I think that's actually vaguely smart. I think that's how, look, it didn't work for this one, but here's the difference, especially now you got mzinho. The next roster mania, mate, at the end of the year, that's where people who are in a team like a G2 and maybe their team doesn't do anything, and they go, actually, wait a minute, double my salary and this team might be better. That's where you get the guy to join. I think they're planting the seeds. So look, let's be extreme. Obviously, Falcons won the fucking major. I doubt that's where really the trajectory for this team is. But They already have simple, so we're all vaguely interested. They just have to become top 10, in my opinion. If you could even be the 10th best team, doesn't that make Maui's stream
that's super
way
quick.
better, you know?
Yeah, that happens so quick. We've seen the elevation through. Yeah. It just takes like a month, right? Yeah. When 2 Draculans, you're so back.
And this is also all the shit that mzinho told himself to tell him that he's not just doing it for the sick paycheck and because he wants to play with Senzu again. No, yeah, we can good. Yeah, Mike, I vaguely remember when I was like text notes 9 years old when he was 9. Give me a break, whatever. He didn't know shit about that, whatever. He just came because the moolah was there. Anyway, let's move on. Maui, what is bad in your opinion in CS right now?
Mine is just, I was thinking of a couple things, roster moves I didn't like, or just, I mean, there's been a lot of movement this offseason here, and I feel like I wanted to still take the time to just recognize the career of one player who kind of just had a precipitous fall off that was difficult to explain, but I'll put it into numbers first, and I'm talking about broky, because obviously he was benched on FaZe, and I don't know how his career really recovers from this kind of point, because I looked back at his Chengdu, which would be more or less one of his last great events. Last one that he won an HLTV MVP at. It was in 2024, early on. And since then, using the land filter, top 20, he's played 34 events. At Chengdu, with that same filter, he had a 1.17 rating, which is really good. Like, you're super happy if your opera's putting up those kinds of numbers on a regular basis. They're not really what we see nowadays for MVP numbers. Usually someone's popping off with like a 1.3, 1.27, you know, so like really like at least 0.1 higher. Since broky had that Chengdu, I want people to think in their heads, how many times do you think he got a 1.17 or above after that in those 34 events?
I genuinely haven't looked, but I'm going to guess it happened like 1 or 2 times ever. Come on. What is it?
0.
4.
I just rated
4 times.
Four
It's more
times.
than I thought. Okay.
But it's 34 events.
Okay,
it's
true.
34
and he is the
events.
author, to be fair as well. Yeah, true.
That's a day.
I just want everybody to know that I thought it was 0. I just
okay. Apparently, you actually need more of a hater. Okay,
man.
All right.
I mean, and also, okay, how many? Okay, for HLTV, they also, you know, they make somebody's rating green if they get a 1.05 or better 10 times. Only 10 events of those 34 with those same filters are even green.
Okay.
And I just feel like, when looking at broky's style, I feel like some of it comes down to that fact that he was always explosive, but he wasn't necessarily aggressive. And I think that's something that really kind of led to his downfall in terms of not being able to find consistency for a FaZe clan that was so kind of hit or miss in their own team form. Because if he gets to a late round situation, 1v1, post plant, he's going to win it. 1v2, great chance. 1v3 wins them more often than you think. But FaZe weren't finding themselves in those kinds of situations, and the problem is that because he wasn't really an aggressive early round, find the pick opper, as you see from people like mzonzi, even people like, say, like SunPayus or Wrinkle, or like, there's so many different examples of people that are aggressive oppers, and they can be explosive if the late round calls upon it. But because broky was just never a focal point for FaZe in how they wanted to start rounds, I felt like he just kind of he fell out of confidence so hard, because it's pretty rare that FaZe in the last year was putting him in situations where he actually could thrive, because they weren't actually flashing him for the opening kill on a round or going for a boost. Like, I felt like broky of all operas, like literally FaZe on Astralis gets more boosts than broky does. You know, that's how ridiculous it got for me and how little they were actually setting him up. And so I think that this guy's fall off is really partially on him, because he could hit more shots and he could play better for sure. But I also think that part of it is just sort of a misuse of the player you had.
Okay. Yeah, I think, you know, your ending point is something I completely agree with when it comes to FaZe as a whole. I feel like they've done such a horrible job of creating an environment for people to be successful in if the individuals aren't there. And it's one thing I'm critical of Kerrigan of just in general, which is I feel like he's one of the best IGLs in the world, and I would never argue against that. But also when things start going sideways, I feel like very rarely, I don't think it actually like recovers. Like the team is, once they start losing faith in their individuals, they start losing faith in their own identity. And that affected broky the most. And I think that team as a whole he lost all of his confidence, but I don't think he ever really like evolved as an opera. I think he was always just the same player. And instead of helping him evolve as a player, when the team just started doing worse, they just kind of, I don't know if he did it to himself, but if you watch the games, he basically just became a dedicated like support player that happened to have an op, and then they wanted him to try to close rounds. But like you said, they were so unsuccessful at a certain point when they lost that individual form that he's now in situations that were manufactured for him just to basically fail. And it's on him at the end of the day because he lost his individual ability and the way that that team thrived. It does still boil down to him, but that team environment was not conducive for anybody to bounce back. Like literally none of them did. Like it's not like, oh, broky started playing worse and then like he was able to bounce back. Like nobody, I feel like even the only one that didn't really like completely fall off in that roster individually was Frozen. And then even he started to actually falter at times and the team just looked completely out of sorts. So when I see broky, I see a player that, funny enough, I actually think he could be incredibly good still in a different environment. But yes, like the combination of his individual ability like falling off, and then the combination of the way FaZe played and leaned on those individuals, as soon as he lost his confidence, it was like a double whammy because I think that they weren't like necessarily doing something to broky. He took himself out of it, but like there was just no way for him to pull himself out in that environment. They gave him a break, and I thought that was always like respectable from the org standpoint. And I thought that was actually a good idea. But then after it kind of fell off the wagon again, I think they should have got rid of him a long time ago because I think it made it worse for him. Like that, he could have, like, him just stuck there, like basically being the player that he was, only made him play worse and made FaZe worse. And just, it was, just wasn't good for anyone. I definitely think broky could actually be a relevant opera again in like a team like, oh, what's a good example of a team? I would say Heroic, but obviously I know who they just got. But like that type of team, right?
Okay.
Where like they're on the outside looking in, and if they had like even a strong identity whatsoever of how they like to play, I think he could find himself again very easily in a new environment. But the FaZe situation, when you play bad, there's probably not a worse team to play Counter-Strike in. Well,
Yes.
that previous version of FaZe.
Yeah.
If you were individually bad, there was no worse team to be in because that's just how they played. That's how they had success. Like they literally, in their mind, I feel like they couldn't even comprehend like how they could play differently when you have that much success in that way. And I think Rops was, the one that saw it first. He's like, shit, man, it's going down. Like we've lost it, and there's no coming back. And that's why he didn't resign for 6 months. And that to me always has spoke to how that FaZe roster felt about itself. Is if Rops didn't want to stay after all that success and work through it in those 6 months, that means, man, they played with broky for so much longer after that too. Like imagine being broky in that scenario, trying to, oh god, so I think broky could be at least the top. He could be a top 20 opera. I'm not gonna say player, but like opera in general. Like he could be a relevant opera again. I really do. Like I'm not just like bullshitting to be glass half full. I think he could. What, dude? I think he could.
The obvious gag there is whenever Kassad says a top X, we make him name them. I don't even know if you could name 20 operas that play the pro.
No, I couldn't. My point is more so. I'm trying to.
I know. You're trying to rein it in. I know. The problem is, you said top 20 and you're about to say a player, and then Maui's faced him. They're like. And then you went, Opera, and it was like, well, I mean, yeah, you're right on that because once he gets past about 10.
He could be on a tier 1.5 team. He could be on a tier 1 or the top, easily the top of tier 2, or if not a tier 1.5 team.
By the way, the Heroic shout was a decent one. The idea would be if he joined a team like Heroic, and as you're saying, unlike FaZe, he's not just a member, they build the game around him and say, you're going to set you up. Yeah, it's plausible he could still be a competent player who could play that. I mean, the joke of being Heroic is they just had a bloody rifle after up for a whole season, and even then they were last players in every tournament. So no, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I don't know. I think it's just a shame. Yeah, that's it. I just think that FaZe roster is just fucking terrible to everybody.
No. By the way, I agree with you on the last point. I actually do think that because I've actually never heard anyone say it that way. I do think it's probably the worst team ever if you individually have something wrong with your game or need like special attention. Because basically, I always say this, the whole vibe of that team was, it's Carrigan's team, and Carrigan's style is he just trusts that people can play the game and are already like contemplating. You're not babysitting anyone or teaching anyone. You're just getting people that can already play the game, and he'll even tell you this in interviews, he's creating situations that are favourable for you, in the game. And then beyond that, you have to do the rest. Like, you have to be a competent top 20 type player, and then people like him and Ray are going to fit in around you when they used to have those players. The problem became, especially once they went to the Jacob lineup, then you are babysitting someone, then you are introducing someone to the game. And then also, if you're putting any effort into that, and then you've changed your coach a few times, it was never a team that we were going to fix you. If anything in that team, the really dark thing is, it would have never been, the solution never would have been we're fixing broky. It would have been, if they could have got players, they would have kicked him. They would have just kicked him earlier. Like you said, if anything, broky got a lot of time in there. I'll tell you why I actually think it's legit, because actually when Maui did that whole thing, I've never checked those stats, but just from memory, the only time I can even remember in quite a while he ever did anything was the Budapest playoffs. And people will forget, he was bad in so many of those stages before that. Like, the rest of them all came on as the stage went. I think he only got good by the time they got to maybe stage 3 and then the playoffs. Like, that was a miracle. And obviously the joke then became, even if it's true, he himself, like Carrigan's just good in play. Well, he would have never been in another playoff, would he, with this phase? Like, they weren't even close to getting to the major, never mind actually like fucking being good once they lost Carrigan. They were just going to be an irrelevant team. So sadly, he did have to move on. I actually think like you, I hope this isn't really the end of his career. He's not even that old. Like, if I were him, I would just set up this season or just go and, play privately and play a bit of FPL and all that sort, and then just work your way back. And then the next season, like you say, if you have the connections out there, you get a tier 1.5, top tier 2 team, especially one, like, I agree with you. If you're going to do it this way, as like one last run, you get a team that committed to you, where actually, because as you say, for like a GamerLegion or a Rook, it'd be a big deal to have a player like that. The guy was like a Kavitz MVP. He's been a Hitchell TV top 10 player. Like, this guy's had the status. So you pick a team where essentially they'd be happy you're there, and you're happy to get one last chance. Then you just delete what happened in FaZe and just let it go. Because another problem, like Maui was saying there, was there's even a style detail that a lot of people missed on his game, which is actually, even though you think of all the broky highlights, you think of him doing like crazy moves and no scopes and he wins a 1vx. Bro, on T side, he was like the AWPer that took like fucking no opening kill attempts like ever, bro. Like, he would be single digit opening kill attempts. And I always used to say it as a reference point, everyone here thinks Shiro is the most passive AWPer ever. Even Shiro was on like 12% opening kill. You know what I mean? Like, even he was on that, man. And I know he definitely wasn't going super harm and fighting anyone early. So broky also in their team was completely lost. And as pointed out, FaZe is probably the worst team ever if you have to hide a player. You can't do it. Like, you're on front, you're in the spotlight if you're in FaZe, bro. The last thing I'll say as well is I agree with Maui. I actually think the saddest thing of all is there's going to be kids who only know CS2 or have only started following the last 2 years who'll just think this guy sucked forever. They won't even know that, like, the first year, about the first year or so of CS2 was a very good player. He was still a totally competent player. At the end of CSGO, he was actually like a slept-on player. He was actually kind of a banger. Also, a really fun player to watch. I always used to say he was like the modern JJW. He would just create awesome fucking sequences in the game, which also, at the time, kind of played into that FaZe style, didn't it? Like, if broky in a big stage game does some crazy move, that does work more in the big stage events than it does in just a random group stage. That was kind of what was dope about their team, wasn't it? And then let's add in, because I also think one of his problems as well, by the way, is he's not a guy who's ever done media, so none of us actually have any clue at any point in time what he's ever been thinking for the last 5 years. That was cool as a mystique when he was this mysterious cruise. Like, the problem is in the latter years when he just sucked, he didn't have any like politician game. He couldn't come out and say, hey, I'm having like problems at home, or don't worry guys, I'm working. No one had any clue what was going on in his head. So I also think sadly that affected like how people think of him now. And also a bit like Ultimate, he became just a meme for like 9 months or something. It's bad enough when you have 1 or 2 months where people are like, kick this guy. Oh, bro, when it's like most of the year, and you know if you open any website after a loss, it's kick me. Like, that just gets dark for everyone. Because at that point, because everyone gets frustrated that they haven't been kicked, we all go from like critiquing them to basically being a hater. Like, I hate this guy and I hate this team, which is sort of, it's valid, but it's kind of rough for players who were formerly beloved. That's the worst thing. FaZe and broky went from we love these guys to I hate their guts and I want them out for FaZe uniform. Like, that's just how the story ended, sadly. That is how it ended.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of making roster moves, though, we have some poly markets for you guys again. So, if you go, obviously they have a bunch of matches, like they have a upcoming stake ranked and things like that, but they also have these props, where you can do things like before it was like, will they add a map? Who wins a tournament? But I thought we'd do a couple of roster move ones. How about this one? Speaking of teams like GamerLegion, obviously, if you remember how the season went, GamerLegion quite literally were one of like the teams to watch coming into the major. Everyone was really interested. They seemed like they're really good. And then at the major, they bombed completely. And then they even were crap at this Chinese tournament. If people don't know this XCC, they just seem like they've suddenly become like completely irrelevant. So being as it's not like they have the biggest names, people want to know, will they make a roster move? At the moment, the traders say yes, 55% chance. So people can take whatever angle this. Do you think that's the right number? Do you think they will make a roster? Should they make a roster? What are your thoughts on GamerLegion? And you pick what you want to tell us here. Oh, I've just realised. Wait there 1 second. They can add that in post. It does actually have the wrong overlay here, but they'll add that in post. Right? What do you think, fl0m? What do you think of this move? Does it happen? Do you think it's the right number? Would you like them to make a move?
I want them to get Rez the fuck out of there, but I've always been a Rez fanboy from the start. Get Rez out of here, ship him out, make as much money as you can, get him somewhere good, and continue to rebuild your roster. I'm also a little bit, I don't know, my enjoyment of watching PR play Counter-Strike is getting worse. So I actually, and because PR is playing worse, I would like them to make a change. So I would like, and I just want Rez out of there. I want Rez on a different team. I want Rez, like, get Rez on FaZe, man, or something. Like, give me Rez anywhere but GamerLegion, where he still continues to play incredible Counter-Strike for these respectfully bum ass teams, like where his level is, like dude. Okay. No, I'm so like GamerLegion. Okay. Sure, okay, cool, man. You made some runs. I was interested in you, but then also I continuously kind of watch you just kind of feel like shit or luck your way in tournaments where I feel like you're having individual pop-offs and you're not really winning as a unit. And then as soon as you don't have these individual pop-offs, you look terrible. And I just don't want to see Rez on that team anymore. So I'm hoping it's yes, is my answer. And I'm hoping they get him out of there ASAP, and maybe PR can continue to develop, because I feel like lately he's been going backwards, not forwards, as a player in terms of his. I don't know what the stats say, but eye test wise, I see some of the craziest decision making I've ever seen on that roster, and I just feel like they're all 5 individuals showing up for work, and they don't work together at all.
Funnily, the market actually just moved live as we were discussing this. It was at 50-50, now it's at 30%. Okay. I feel like it's got to be a little bit higher than 30%, if I'm being real, because I feel like the nature of GamerLegion is an organization that wants to move pieces because they're not actually truly trying to contend for trophies. You know, they are actually more so a feeder team towards the top team. So I think fl0m might more or less get his wish, where Rez will probably move somewhere a little bit better. I mean, the FaZe angle is actually great because I've actually kind of described Rez myself as kind of like, I think Rez in a way sort of had an unlucky career where Rain just stuck through thick and thin with FaZe Clan and got rewarded because he was in the right place at the right time. And NIP kind of did the opposite for Rez, where in the very beginning it looked pretty promising, but then it sort of just petered off, and then you really had him just, I'd say, keeping his head above water as the rest of the team is just moving in and out so frequently that it was sort of embarrassing, actually, from the org. I think that I would just go a little higher than 30% personally. That's all I really would say about this one.
Right, here's the thing. First of all, I have actually never seen on what this isn't like today it came out, by the way, this market. I've never seen it live as we're talking. Drop from like 55% to 30. This isn't even a live podcast, guys. Like, this isn't like someone's watching and everyone's like, get on! And that's ain't happened. That just randomly happened. So I would say if it's still if it stays on 30%, I'd definitely take it personally. I already think it's going to happen anyway. Remember, you've still got a whole month of August for this to happen, and it's still a few weeks of July. I also just think, like I just said, because the major was so miserable for them, and they've even blown this like off-season tournament, I just think it's so likely if you look at their team, beyond Rez, they don't have any big names. So I think you just go and get someone else. And I'm also with, actually, fl0m. The real reason why GamerLegion, for me, I could never really get into them this season when they were having these runs, is because it wasn't just hype. Like, if people go back to 2025, the PR guy genuinely looked like one of the next, like, sick fucking EU riflers. Like, he looked really dangerous. And for whatever reason, maybe it is just that he actually thought he was getting the call up and they didn't. His game never recovered from that. He's just, like, he's not terrible anymore. He had, like, a month that was bad. He's just kind of all right now. But it's actually removed a lot of the luster, because that did look like a player where it's like, keep your eye, like think of some of those FUT players. It looks like if you keep your eye on these guys in 6 months or a year, they could not only be on a better team, they might just be a top 20 player. They might be fucking cracked out. Sadly, he's sort of regressed from that. So if I'm them, yeah, I think there's a bunch of angles you could also go. Like, sure, there's a million tier 2 players you could give a go to. So I think it happens personally. I will say it happens. Okay, now we will go to my bad point. And my bad point, actually, I secretly foreshadowed it. This is the ultimate glass has nothing in it, never mind half full. So they've just announced finally that ultimate slaving Team Liquid. This isn't going to be ugly. This is just bad. Bro, he got 2 years in Team Liquid. Right? I don't want to go too far back in the DeLorean, boys. Team Liquid used to be a contender for majors. They won a fucking Grand Slam. Do you know how few teams have won a Grand Slam? By the way, theirs was 100% on LAN too. At like real IMs and like massive LAN. They used to be literally one of the premier organizations in CS. By the way, if you don't know, in esports, they still are. They are still mega relevant in Dota. They have a decent NA League of Legends. Still across all the games. The idea, an org of that level, gave this guy 2 years. I think it's crazy. Because here's the problem. I'm not even being a hater. I think the first 6 months he was fine. He actually showed some potential. After that, you could maybe argue, because, they were changing the IGLs and things like that. You could maybe say you give him another season after that. This guy essentially got like 4 straight seasons. And the last year or so, bro, this was as bad as the broky one. It's just they weren't at the same level of scrutiny. He might have actually just been flat out bad at AWPing for 1 year. A whole year. And again, I just said it on FaZe. Bro, you can't hide AWPers anyway. It's really hard to take your AWPer and have him be bad and then make it look like it's fine in the team. And in their team, by the way, they didn't even try. They just, again, another team that doesn't know how to use AWPers. Team Liquid, you just get thrown to the wolves, so be like, there you go, just fucking drown. We'll be okay over here, do what we can do. Man, this is insane that that's why I'm picking this man bad that he got 2 years. I think it's crazy. Surely you pull the plug before then.
I just think that they have no idea how to develop talent. I think it's either from lack of personnel that are in that camp, and they're not the only one. I like to dog on Liquid a lot, but it's just like what I was talking about with FaZe. I don't think Kerrigan, for example, is like, he's not the type. I know we see him as like this, like, and I keep mentioning Kerrigan because it's like a really good like comparison to me, at least, is like this player that's incredibly individually talented in terms of his mind, one of the greatest like IGLs ever, right? But even him, I wouldn't put him in the category that helps players grow. He can get the best out of that player, like what they have, but I feel like he doesn't like push them forward. If they're like a rookie, he's not like taking this rookie and like fully developing. No, he's taking the superstar and he's showing them how to get like 5% more out of their game, which is like.
But it's where fl0m, I already know the fan in the comments is going to go, that's not true. Look what he did with Keisuke. Keisuke's already cracked, bro. Like, he didn't teach him a place. He just basically said, go now. He said, go. That's about it. I can tell.
He just said, I'll go
exactly.
first. You just
you're right.
And even then, he called a fucking timeout to freak out at him when he overpeaked Torch. Sorry, my dog's going crazy. He overpeaked Torch on Inferno. There was immediate, like, don't ever do that shit again.
Yes.
But, like, the fact that he didn't develop that himself is the problem. And that's not to fl0m any player or even Kerrigan. It's just to show that there's, like, different types of IGLs and systems and players. And Liquid has never had... No Opera has ever gone into Liquid and gotten better.
No.
In fact, I'd say almost any player. And this is so common for so many players. And that's why certain teams, like G2, for example, though, I would say is an exact opposite of this, where you have somebody like Saw who can actually, you feel like they make a player better. Look at the difference in just SunPayus, even a veteran, when Saw was and wasn't there. And that, to me, is like, it's really hard to come down to coaching and analyze coaching. We can only look outside from in, but ultimate... You're right. The first 6 months, he looked great. And that's because the same thing I just said about broky. He was the same fucking player is the problem. He never evolved. There was no evolution. And then when you start throwing in, oh, we're getting rid of this player. We're getting rid of that player. We have a new IGO. We have a new coach. This player's not developing for shit. He doesn't know, like, he's just trying to play the same way he's been playing because that's how he's had a moderate level of success. And nobody's sitting there teaching him how to do otherwise. So, and that's the real shame of some of these situations is like, we don't really know how good or smart or stupid Ultimate really is. The roster is just a clown car. And I know that you couldn't opt in the clown car situation.
Yes.
But there's so many other rosters like that. And that's, unfortunately, you have to actually probably do that. In current Counter-Strike, we're not at that level yet in esports in general, I'd actually say, where you really have the support staff we're getting better. Like we have like the analyst, the coach, the sports, like we have the people there in place, but you don't really know which ones are good, which ones are bad. And that to me is where so many of these organizations are, you're starting to see with their level of consistency gap other teams. And Navi is a great example of this, where you have Blade and the same sports psychologist there forever. And there are tons of things to like go at Navi for. Maybe they're not like as good as you want, but the fact that they're always just top 5 in every major, any player they get in there, man, think about how you felt about that Navi roster when they moved on and they went international. At least for me, I was like, well, this is a shit show. What the hell are they doing? And they won a major like 6 months later.
Yeah, absolutely.
What the hell?
Yep.
And that to me speaks to like the culture, and that's what esports organizations now I think are starting to feel the weight of. And Ultimate is a reflection of that. I think the culture, I think that the support staff in Liquid, as nice as they might be, and I think everybody loves playing for the organization because of how well they treat the players, you literally never hear any bad thing. There's still something not right. There's still something not developing in any of the new players that have ever gone there, whether it's Ultimate. And that's what I worry about for Jorko, is I think he has the individual ability, but if there isn't somebody there to basically sharpen him, he's just going to be the same player. You're going to have like another wrinkle, right? Like it's like you're going to have another... They're going to be the same player unless you actually have the right people there to develop and move them forward. And without that next step, it's not going to make a difference for Liquid, because then they're going to replace an IGL, they're going to replace a player, and then Jorko is going to be the same player that he was for the first 6 months, where you saw individual flashes, and then we repeat the carousel again. And that's really, it's just, I think people are starting to see some esports organizations actually have a culture and the real support staff there that can truly develop and identify talent, and some don't. And that to me is more so what happened to Ultimate. I can't evaluate Ultimate. I can just tell you he sucked at opping at the end of it when their team was a clown car, but that's not... I think any opera would have been terrible in that roster. I don't basically, with the exception of like mzonesi or Zyru, I don't think anybody was going into that team and performing consistently at a high level. I would have cut probably any opera there.
Hopefully they don't take your example too literally, because then what they'll probably do is sign the assistant support staff, an assistant ARPA, and then the assistant GM of Navi, which, just wouldn't work, obviously. Maui, what do you think about the Ultimate situation?
I mean, there's a lot to pick on from what fl0m was saying, and I think it leads to an interesting discussion where it's just the culture. I feel like the top-down approach and just making sure that you actually have a great head of staff, whether that's your esports director, your head coach. I mean, even to an extent, your in-game leader. All of those can kind of bleed down, and I think that's something that esports is probably still behind in. And I think that that's kind of been the biggest folly of Liquid, is that Joka Steve has more or less attached himself to heads of the team as in terms of the rosters. Like he attached himself to Twist when they picked up Ultimate and Skulls. He's attached himself to other players in the past with the team, and he kind of just signs off on the moves that they want to make. And that's not really the same kind of director who's sitting back, observing, going to make the right moves more objectively by evaluating the players on the team. And it's more of a guy that he's just staying around, and he's fun to talk to. I can't really say a lot of positive, or in a way a lot of negative about Joka Steve, because I don't think that really the role was what it needs to be when he was hired to it. And so in a way there's potential that what he does and the way that they brought him into the team, it's probably outdated. I don't really want him to be, I don't know if there's really even a lot of names out there that you can just easily grab from a bag and say these guys are going to be better as directors of your Counter-Strike team. But I think that's somebody that if you want to take the right step in the right direction as Liquid, you probably need to actually hire a guy that's a little bit more like a Blade, but again, the world has only created one Blade, in my opinion. So I'm not saying that that's going to be easy for anybody who's above Joka Steve to make that. But more to Thorin's actual point about Ultimate, the Dust 2 article that M&M's actually wrote on this was pretty funny, because he actually just kind of did the bit of legwork necessary to just kind of make an example of how Ultimate's tenure was so long, even in comparison to names that you really strongly associate with the Liquid brand. He brought up the fact that he was on Liquid longer than OC, then Grim, then Hiko, then Adren, and it's like, dude, I think Adren is Liquid. I think Hiko is Liquid in a way, and one day less than JDM. So the fact that he had that much runway just goes to show that there's just no real drive for Liquid at this point. I mean, well, now they're making the move, so hopefully that's showing what the drive should be. But they were just sitting on their hands right there, and that's extremely disappointing for Liquid, because you're starting to see that some of these legacy esports organizations in general are just getting kind of lapped. They're getting lapped by Falcons, by soon-to-be BC Game, perhaps. Anybody that can just splash a bit more cash is going to overtake the Fanatics, the NIPs, and the Liquids of the world, who, despite the fact, and even Astralis, like those teams were, in a way, more... The only thing that it seems like is proved to be constant in Counter-Strike is that money will eventually buy success. I'm not going to say it buys it right away, as we saw from Falcons, but it will eventually get there. And Liquid is not... it feels like it's a dream come true if any North American player were to sign for Liquid. Like, anybody playing right now in the ESL Challenger League, if they got a call up to Liquid, they would be like, that was my dream for the last 6 years, working up to this moment. But the reality is, you're probably in better hands if you just joined a BC Game today. So that's just kind of the disappointing aspect of what this Jorko signing looks like, what Ultimate being on there for 2 years was.
Well, I have a little bit to add to that. I mean, that's because they're taking their model and they're still using the same logic and the same pathway when they had VC money. That's why.
Yes.
Is because what you're describing is they didn't build a foundation whatsoever.
Yes.
And when you compare them to organizations that have even a mouse that everybody likes to call Auralist, completely relevant at all times in terms of performance aspect because of their academy team, the groundwork that they've laid to identify talent, their staff. Where on the flip side, you're talking about BC Game Falcons, they're beating these older organizations at their own game because they do now have the infinite money glitch. And they're using, you're still playing the same game. So while Maus and Navi's basically, at one point the joke was they had 2 top 10 teams this year, right? Like these guys are able to continue to facilitate talent and develop and move them up and identify it to a point where it actually makes sense and it's a business model. Liquid's still operating like they're the ones with the most money in the scene and they can just buy a player that they need, but they can't anymore. And they haven't laid any sort of foundation on top of that to go with it. So I agree with you, Maui, that those organizations do eventually just kind of win versus some of them. I think that, funny enough, I think that Navi will like outlast those same exact organizations that you just mentioned because they're going to actually develop the talent and have a level of consistency that when BC Game or Falcons can't make the right purchase at the right time, their team won't be as good. And so that's why I think I agree with you. I just also think that I like my point where I like, bringing up the fact that there's just a very clear gap with the organizations that have truly looked at this as more of, I don't want to say traditional sports, but just in general, like actually laid a foundation instead of just, hey, who should we buy this month that makes sense for our team? And we just write the check and then we get them, because Liquid used to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Liquid, I can't remember when, I think it was around the time OC was leaving. They did mention that they weren't like pulling out of CS, but I think they were trying to minimize basically doing that, which is, I mean, that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. Being smarter with your money makes total sense, especially when you don't have an online casino or the Sovereign Wealth Fund backing you. Like, what you can then do is like have an academy team. But now you've taken so long that your own organization kind of takes a hit. And then like the players that you can pull is worse. Like everything just kind of comes crumbling down around you because they haven't laid that early on. And now if they got an academy team, they'd be playing in the same tournaments because Liquid's fallen so far off. And then, like you said, the challenger player doesn't even really want to play there. I mean, because you've just done such a poor job of identifying this. I mean, Malbs finally showed up on Liquid like after he played on a European team, man. Like, oh yeah.
The joke is he had to also be semi-washed as well to join.
He was there the whole time. I'm playing against Malbs for fucking years.
That was a step down from G2.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, he's Like it's so ridiculous. Anyway, I'll shut up.
No. By the way, I'll even add on what you're saying as well. Aside from the one exception I can think of is nerds. Aside from that, even the big names they've had over the last year and a half are just people who have a reason why people don't want them. Like people didn't want fucking Shuhei for whatever reason in Mouse. Elijah was booted from FaZe. Even fucking as we talk about here, what's his name? Who were we just talking about there for a second?
Ultimate?
And all the Malbs, yeah. Even Malbs, the whole reason is why is he withered on the vine in G2. So even when they get the big, I agree with you, fl0m. I actually do think that's probably the thing that's fucked them the most. Liquid used to be like a top 5 team that could offer you money. Now they're just like one of like 30 teams or something, it feels like. And as a result, they end up with top 30 results. Yeah. Right. Okay, Maui. I've been listening to you and your opinions for many years. I don't know if Liquid has been, but if they want to start listening, what could aid them in this quest?
Well, I'm going to go off script actually and say, okay, I just spent 2 weeks in Japan and these kinds of earbuds are popping off there. Like everybody is rocking open earbuds now. And if you want to get your own, then you can get the Raycon Essential open earbuds. No, I actually was wondering like, wow, when did this catch on in Japan? Because the last time I was there a couple of years ago, this was not the case. Okay. But thankfully, you can get 20% off on what may be your first in the new open ear just road that is being paved by people like Raycon. So if you want to help us out, as this message is sponsored by Raycon, you can go to www.raycon.com/snakeopen, and you can get 20% off of the Raycon Essential Open Earbuds so that you can hear what's going on around you. I've talked about it before that these kinds of earbuds just make total sense if you're in a city and you need to hear what's going on around you, because you're going to be walking in New York, some guy's like, I'm walking here, but if you're using your freaking, closed back headphones, you can't hear that guy saying that. And you're missing out on literal culture that is being fed to you live. But so get the open earbuds, okay? So yeah, check them out at buyraycon.com/snakeopen. The Japanese are already on this stuff, guys. They're already all over this, so you could get it on it too.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, just a lot of big fans of the LFN network in Japan. I can imagine a guy watching our show like, oh, Thorin-san, nice-oo. And then obviously when Kasatsu went, Nani? Ding. Exactly, yeah, whatever. I imagine that's why the trend took off there. It has to be about us. Okay, we're now moving on to the good section.
When I was there in Japan, by the way, they said it's Kyosuke. They said it's Kyosuke. It's Kyosuke, guys. It's Kyosuke, okay? From Japan, from the source.
Listen, first of all, the language that we're speaking is English, sir, so I don't care what they say. We didn't have a world war so they could tell us how to pronounce names, even their names. So, but anyway, you're welcome to buy the earbuds anyway if they're available in Japan. Right, let's go on to the good section of the show. So, fl0m, what is good? We've obviously bitched about all the bad stuff. What's good right now in CS?
I'll tell you. I love VRS. I mean, that's basically it. And I feel like it's actually saved professional Counter-Strike. Not even to be like too grand, but I was so sick of the same shit. Like, dude, think of the EG Astralis shit that was going on in some of those things. And it was Big. Do you remember Big was the top 10 team basically at all times because of this? Like, I hated the franchise.
Because they had the Blast Partners spot and they would always be there. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man, it was so bad. And it's not the dog on the orgs, and it's not even... there's some aspects of that stuff that I miss, and I think VRS has created its own set of problems. But the good to me is this is one of the best majors I can ever remember watching as a whole. I mean, between the quality of teams that we've gotten, I'm not going to sit here and tell you stage 1 was perfect with the best level of Counter-Strike, but just in general, I feel like we have way more competitive teams in Counter-Strike than we ever have by we really only talked about 5 teams before, truly, real. Now I feel like when I mention teams to just a viewer, and this comes from a perspective of a streamer, there are people that know who GamerLegion are. The fact that we just had a segment on GamerLegion, nobody gave a flying fuck about GamerLegion before before VRS and other organizations. So to me, I just want to glaze VRS, and I know Valve gets a lot of shit, and I know that there are still problems with VRS. I get to host my own event now, because of VRS. Nobody would care about a LAN in Vegas. It wouldn't be attached to anything. And now we have an actual grand ecosystem where everything is connected to each other. Regardless of the flaws, it's so much more interesting. Holy shit. It's not even close. I mean, you guys on the desk get to talk about different TOs now. You get to actually bridge in events, and we have one cohesive storyline of Counter-Strike rather than just like, oh, here's what happened at Blast this week, or here's what happened at ESL. No, you get to do that in context of what's going on to the other event, what's going on into the major. And it's just nice, man. I mean, this major was like probably the best major I've ever watched as a whole. And I feel like VRS, sure, ESL did a great job. I'm not trying to like take away from them, but like, yeah, VRS created that in my opinion. And that's it. That's a good point. I hope VRS continues to do what it has, and I hope that the problems that I think where people will struggle with the mobility more so in the tier 2 aspect, like there's like, I think teams get a little stuck right now still in VRS, like outside of that top 12 invite system, and it kind of creates like so it's almost like created like the franchise problem, but the fact that there is still movement is better than what we had before, where the movement is created based on results, not payment. And that could still be tweaked, but I think we'll get there. I think it'll. I feel like every year with VRS has only gotten better, not worse. It's only progressed. Counter-Strike as a whole, the professional scene has only evolved. Where I see other scenes literally scrambling to figure out different formats, different things that they need to do to make people interested. Where Counter-Strike is just like without a hitch, just smooth rolling, and I think that's because of VRS.
I'd say the top 15-ish teams that keep themselves up there in the VRS rankings absolutely deserve it. I don't really have any qualms with that. I would say that the problems with stage 1 is that, yeah, there's probably about 15-ish teams that are playing CS that is both tactical wall, having a 2 to 3 world-class players. And so everybody's so used to watching those sort of teams play that when you watch teams that are out of the top 20 competing against each other, usually it's one of the two reasons that they got there. One, they have a couple crack kids who are just headshotting everybody with like a 300 millisecond time to kill, or they actually have some pretty cool strategies, and usually they don't have both. I'd say like Monty's an example where they definitely didn't have crack players, but they had great strategies. But then you had also like a BetBoom. Well, BetBoom actually maybe is a bad example because they had a good IGL too. But I mean, I think those guys were playing pretty fucking wild individual CS through that major as well. So that they were definitely they were like a stage 1 team that saw a lot of success, and I'm happy about that. But no, onto your greater point here about VRS. I think it's definitely solved a lot of the issues that we had in the past in terms of making it such that the major is the most important tournament. I think it has achieved that goal at this point, which I am very glad about, because I was the one that made the take in the past that was that the RMRs have surpassed the major in terms of importance. And that's just not ever how a scene should be run. That the qualifier to the World Championship had greater repercussions and impact on organizations' livelihoods than literally the tournament that they're supposed to all be trying to win. So I'm glad that VRS has had that sort of effect. I do think that something is lost without without the RMRs. I actually am a little bit nostalgic for them, and I know that, and I don't think that's entirely like rose-tinted glasses in the past or anything like that. I think the emotions, like in trying to create an entertainment product, that's those singular moments of seeing players achieve their dreams all successively as they win these ever important games that are, gonna change their literal futures. That's something that I think was really actually kind of vital to telling the stories of some of these teams. Because then, as opposed to that now, who the fuck cared about Sinners? I don't give a damn about Sinners. I don't know who Sinners is. I don't know who
my pick'ems care. They fucked my pick'ems.
That's true. I put them through just because I thought they were a European team and they're good. No, seriously, like that's it. I didn't. But who watched that story?
No.
Who could tell that story? They had practically no story. So I think some of that is lost.
But I know what you mean, Maui. What you basically mean is that I think I can actually articulate what people really miss about the RMR. They don't really care about any of the stuff of the drama with like top teams not making it. That's not it. The real drama you want it's the whole like American Idol angle of like the team that otherwise isn't going to be at the major, but they make it. And like their whole life. Oh my god, I've played for this. I get a chance to go there. My family. That is like those reality TV. People pull for people like that. They pull for the plucky underdog, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what made Bad News Eagles.
Yeah, of course.
You know, people love their story because they kept doing it over and over again. It was frustrating because they were doing it at the cost of like FaZe Clan or something, you know. Sure. But it was still exciting in its own right. So I think that aspect has been lost, but I'll take that when we get all of the elite teams making it to the major as regularly as we. I mean you're only
holy shit.
Yeah, it's so stacked. It's so stacked.
Stage 3 was so sick.
By the way, that's what I tell people. If you actually don't like VRS, be specific though, because what you really don't like are actually the most acceptable downsides, which is right at the very end of the qualification. It's essentially, if anyone gets fucked by VRS, it's like the last 2 teams to get in the major, maybe. You know what I mean? But as Maui pointed out, the majority of all the teams you care about are definitely going to be there as a result. And I'll even add in another reason, as you're saying, fl0m. Yeah, stage 1 sucks now because it's actually appropriately seeded. So it's of all the teams you don't care about. But it means that every stage that goes on, you're just ramping up the hype. And by the time, as you said, you hit stage 3, bro, the joke is even the teams we didn't expect to get there, like the 9Zs, the Monties, and the BetBoom, were killing it. Like, that was actually dope. If anything, didn't we filter the right teams through the stages, make them prove themselves, and then when they finally went head-to-head, whereas I'll give you the example, Maui, even though I agree, when the people qualify in the RMR at type, here's where it would be bullshit. If 9Z had just done that thing where you 3-0 the RMR, and they'd gone straight through to stage 3, then no one would have the same hype. You wouldn't have had the journey of going stage 1, you wouldn't have had the like battling through and proving yourself. Like, it would have actually cut short a lot of the hype of that story. So even some of the underdog stories can be cooler if you do it the right way. And also stage 2 was all BO3s. Don't you think those teams gained so much more value from BO3s than the old BO1s and all that randy ass shit where like most of the time it was BO1s? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Most of those B&E ones, except the odd phase one, were just the BO1s. It was just a randy ass game like Into the Breach, etc., where they just pull off some insane game they'd never do, even in the next map if you'd have played one. Also, I'll add in another reason why actually I think a lot of people are slow to pick up on this one. You know, if you ever follow those famous guys on Twitter who tell you at all times who's going to qualify for the next tournament, who needs to win like 2 more games at this LAN to get the right VRS slots, another thing people have missed is, in the same way as the RMR, as Maui says, it was just about get to the RMR and from there make the major. Technically, the rest of the season, unless you're an elite team, doesn't matter. It's just make the major. Every tournament now matters in Counter-Strike. Because at all levels, you're trying to get the invite for the next tournament. Once you get that, the good thing about this now is, now in theory, every tournament to some degree matters, and the big ones really matter. I even made this point to people when FaZe failed. A lot of people were stuck in the old mindset. They were like, right, well, now that they've failed, I guess we'll see them next season. It's like, bro, they have to get the VRS to get the next season. They have to immediately go back on the road. They have to get their ass to China in the off-season for a tournament because they need to hustle. I like that though, fl0m. I actually like the idea that you have to sort of earn your way back. Because we were all here like 5-10 years ago. If you went back in time 10 years ago, because the tournament were the one who invited the top teams, they could invite you even if you sucked. So we all remember when VP, the Polish team, became bad. The problem is they were too popular, so you invite them to every single LAN still. Meanwhile, if you were those teams, I'll give you an example. Some of the NA teams used to have this. I remember when Complexity with like fucking Stanislaw and Ye, etc. Bro, I once did an interview with them. When I was looking on the Wikipedia, I was like, bro, you were at like 3 LANs the whole year. The whole year was like 1 million qualifiers. They would get to like the last match or the second to last match. Every now and then they'd get to the actual LAN. They'd go to a LAN in like Sweden because they played like 1 LAN in the last 6 months. They get banned straight out immediately, so they don't even get like any. They don't even build off the story. Then they just go back home and go back in the online fucking whirlwind where you just playing and trying to get through the lottery basically. So because they used to only be like 2 or 4 slots for each LAN from qualifiers. So what I like now is it feels like we've got a blend of being high in VRS is like an invite, but it's a guaranteed invite that you're good at the game because you currently earned your VRS slot, and then the other ones are like a qualifier, but using the rest of the circuit as well, not just one-off qualifier. So I actually think I'm with you. There's obviously every system has flaws, and you can find parts that I'm sure everyone would agree they don't like. But I think I'm with you. Overall, I think it's just it's universally a good thing, I think, for CS. And lastly, when I said the thing about the TOs hiring, you know, the inviting the Brazilians or the fucking, I mean, the joke is even if Navi had gotten bad, they'd have hired them. Any team that had like massive viewership, they would always invite. The problem is the TO has to do that because his primary thing is the viewership. In a way, we've taken that out of their hands. They don't have to be responsible for that now. We just give them the best teams in the circuit now. And in general, I think it works pretty well. I'm with you. I like it. I like VRS. Again,
it builds the validity and the storyline of the team, so then they get more fans too. Maybe not necessarily like they're not going to go buy a jersey, but like I said, you know what I mean? GamerLegion shows up, you know who they are now. It just, everything through every stage of the major just has full validity. You run, And honestly, nobody with the teams that were left out, nobody felt bad about FaZe not being in the
No,
major.
no.
Like from like a competitive standpoint. I
No,
mean,
no.
like from a fan standpoint, absolutely. But like, I don't think anybody sat there going, "Oh man, FaZe should be in this major. They deserve it." Nobody. And I
No,
love
no.
that. Like about Virtus, it really just kind of takes away that bullshit kind of like Cinderella run, which is fun. But man, when it was cut short, you just like, well, that was kind of a waste. And then everybody has validity now in their runs, and everything's connected.
Okay, Maui, what do you like at the moment?
Mine's I'm coming full circle on the point that I had in the past. I made it a bad point on a show at least maybe 9-ish months ago, maybe even more, when Ash actually signed to
Re-signed with
deal.
GamerLegion, yes.
Yeah, when he re-signed with GamerLegion, I thought that was just so bad because it's a guy that has obviously made a lot out of pieces that were underpowered and has clearly helped develop systems that have led to certain players performing at a level higher than I'd even say this, the way that GamerLegion is sort of sputtering out right now is probably indicative of the fact that they don't have Ash with them. I mean, PR seems like he's still a completely different player when he was under Ash's tutelage versus before. And it's like Ash got him as a rookie, and he looked better as a rookie under Ash than he did under Snacks and their current coach, with, you know, even though he's now supposed to theoretically improve because he's actually gained some tier 1 experience. So I think that now that Ash is actually going to get to use some pieces on this Aurora team, I think that's great. I think this is actually an awesome landing spot for him, because I still don't know with certainty, can Ash manage, say, like superstar personalities? I think that's kind of one of the last keys to being an excellent coach. Can you build the system that's like almost, even though that seems like the harder point, that seems like it's just the first step. Can you actually work with personalities who are going to have problems choking, who are going to be able to, who are not always going to get the most out of their potential, who might not show up for every single tournament? That's something for him to worry about later. But now he gets to work with Kixan, with Yimpat, with the Aurora core. I think this is honestly a sick roster for him to get to work with. It's pretty much a direct improvement. If language barriers aren't a factor with this team, you would practically say this is just a direct upgrade over what was happening on Aurora in the past, in terms of the coach, in terms of the new anchor, Yimpat for Jota there, or Soulfly that is. And then if you actually look at the IGL, I mean, Kixan for Major, I will give Major a little bit of credit. I think that he improved in the most recent season. I thought his calling actually clearly got better. But I think Kixan has shown me more in totality than Major did, even as a fragger too. So there's like two aspects there where I think Kixan can probably be better for the team. My only question is, my literal only question for this team is, can Wycadia speak English well enough? Because he's always played in Turkish-speaking lineups in the past. He's never played, but the thing is that he's done a handful of English interviews, and so he's definitely capable of speaking it. Very different, obviously, though, to play CS at a tier 1 level in your non-native tongue. So I'm mostly, though, the good point here is simply just excitement about the fact that Ash finally has pieces that are world-class to work with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how you could argue, how anybody would actually argue against that, to be honest. I think the big thing is just language. I believe in a Blast interview they talked about like what they were gonna do. They like tried English, right? I can't remember why they said they were trying English. There was a specific reason, but then it kind of got really messy for them. And I think Woxic talked about it on the Blast test. But yeah, sorry, this is like, I wish I had like the actual reference for it. But that to me is like the worrying thing, is like and you know, I'm kind of curious what you guys think about this. I don't know if I agree with coaches dealing with superstars. I think actually, funny enough, I think a lot of times it actually comes more to IGLs dealing with superstars than coaching, because when you're, the biggest problem that Aurora has is not, it's not going to be when Ash calls a timeout, it's when he can't speak. When he's not actually able to be the voice of reason in that team. Something that we've seen Aurora struggle with as a whole is once they basically get, we'll just say once they start trending down, they have no ability to stop. And they just continuously go down, and they have no bounce back ability. We've seen it a little bit at times, and I feel like Major was like, it took everything out of him individually to get them to stop, and it was very short-lived. So I think when I think of Ash with this team, I think that I'm more interested, at least in terms of Aurora's overall success. I think this is going to be like more so on Kixon actually, and his ability to manage that team emotionally. I have no doubt in Ash's ability, like whatsoever at this point. After hearing him articulate himself on the desk, after hearing him like what we've seen, exactly what you mentioned with how much GamerLegion has struggled without him, we very rarely get to like understand how much coaches have an impact, but one of the best ways is when they simply are no longer there. And I think that what you see without Ash there, I don't doubt his ability to build the structure. And I think, yeah, it's going to be new for him to deal with the superstars. But an interesting thing that I only thought of while you were mentioning this is I just don't know if coaches really can control quote unquote superstars as much, because you just get 3 times the talk, or 6, I guess, if you count the other coaches' timeouts. And yeah, before you enter the server, sure, but a lot of people are in their best behavior when you're not in the server and you're not in the actual competitive environment. And I think that that's actually going to fall more on Kixon, is how I see it. And I think that's why Kerrigan has excelled so much with Falcons, is because he knows how to deal with the superstars. Zonic couldn't either. I mean, quite frankly, it's not like this team was looking like a team before Kerrigan got there, because Zonic knew how to handle them. And I think if you go down the line, and with maybe the exception of Blade, but Blade has a very different team in terms of personality. I actually think it more falls on IGLs the more I think about it, like of handling those personalities, making sure that they stay in check during the game. And that's going to be probably not new for Kixon at all, where he just came from, which probably builds that roster up even more. It's actually, he's got experience with this coming from Falcons. And then with Ash, who can, I mean, one of, I don't know, it's hard to say, but I feel like he's got a great mind for Counter-Strike. You combine those two together, I think you have a great team. So Ash is great. It's going to be so sick to see his progression. I think that team boils down to Kixon and the language barrier. And that's where I think hopefully they continue to give Ash all the benefit of the doubt, because an organization on the other side that gave a good coach more power is G2, and that's only benefited them in return. And I think that people are starting to catch on to that. So I love that Ash is getting an upgraded roster. I think he's only got a great mind for the game. I think that really it's going to boil down to language and Kixon, though.
I will echo the sentiment. Like, whenever someone's had, like, I think he overperformed with some of the GamerLegion rosters he had, not just the original one that made the Vince foul, but you even think after that, like, remember, all the other teams, including Kixan's Apex, just gradually got worse and worse, or were immediately relevant after that major. They were the only ones that were able to remix, and even after losing players like Shui and Imma, who were the main pieces, they were able to remix a few times with Ash before he finally ran out of his lock about a year ago. And as you say, Maui, I do think if you look, you can almost just chart like some sort of fucking like aura affected magic or something. As soon as the further you move Ash from the team, everything just falls apart, mate. Suddenly the players that were promising, by the way, he does look like a coach who's developed talent, etc. People like PR weren't even anyone before they joined this team. He found them, made them relevant, made them better, had them really, and then that's pretty much when he stepped away from the lineup. Also, I'll just put this out there. He hasn't said anything in an interview, but I'm just reading between the lines. It looks to me also like it wasn't a great ending in GamerLegion. It looks to me like there's something a bit sus about the way he re-signed and then magically went straight to the bench, then did nothing, then said nothing. There was not even only in rumours that we all made up of like, wow, he accidentally said FaZe in the street. He was never in and he was going anywhere. And actually, if it wasn't for this move now, I was really worried that he was just going to end up like in the wilderness, or he'd have to go back to a GamerLegion or something. So I'm really glad that not only does he get a chance, because I think he's earned it, whether he ends up being good at it or not. Sometimes people aren't big market, big player coaches, but he's earned the crack at least. And also, I actually think people are mad sleeping on this roster. I think this roster looks really fucking good. Like bearing in mind right now, Aurora has a slightly fraudulent HLTV rating. They're number 6 right now because they just made that ridiculous semi-run off beating nobody, basically. They just got like a really easy run of opponents, right? Realistically, at their best, if you go back to like 2025, that was kind of the level they were at anyway, like, you know, a 5, 6, 7 type ranked team. Bro, I think with this roster, they can actually challenge for like 3rd or 4th in the world or something like that. They already had some good pieces. Haven't they just gotten better pieces? These look like upgrades to me, boys. Like, when I look at the roster they have now, I'll go with the new pieces first. I'll tell you why the Kicksan one really hypes me. Because I don't even think he did a bad job in Falcons. I've always just speculated on this. I always got the vibe, if you play in a team with fucking Nico and then your coach is Zonic, you're not the IGL in the way that you are if you're like Carrigan or something, you know what I mean? You don't get that crazy buy-in and control. You're kind of like almost like compromising with two different massive people who want to stay in the team. I think in this team you see the real Kicksan, which is more like the heroic one. And I'll just point this out to people. When Kicksan was in heroic, he had Saw as his coach, who I think empowers people who are IGLs. Well, I'll tell you something that Loz, the guy I do my roster mechanics show with, that nerd guy who comes up with all the stats, one point he made that I thought was a very shrewd point about Shuhei in Team Liquid is, I'll tell you one of the things that makes it less of a mystery why Shuhei sucks in Team Liquid. Here's the two teams he had success in. He had Ash as his coach in GamerLegion, then he had Cyclone as his coach in Mouse. It seems like he's an IGL that needs a very hands-on coach who's going to be really involved with it all. And I get the vibe maybe Kicksan's a similar sort of person. I mean, he isn't the guy who's going to tell the person, like, shit, they fuck up, we're doing it, man. He seems like a reasonable guy. I think Ash will empower this guy. I think you will see the best of this guy like you saw in Heroic. And I wasn't a fan of their IGL in any way in this team. I thought they were a bit one-dimensional. Then the Impact one. What's funny is he's played bad in Mouse, but I don't think people realise it wasn't just that, like, he got some of his T-side spots or the resources taken by Spinks. That is true, by the way. But that's also because Spinks is a really demanding player. He's not even just a normal lurker. He clearly wants to be like the star. I don't get that same vibe in this team. And then also, I'll throw this out there. Another point that Loz made on my show when we actually talked about the mouse moves was, people miss this. Quite literally, if you do ratings of the worst CT spots, normally, right, the bad player who eats the shit in a team has, like, say, 4 out of 5 maps. He has that. Yimfat had the worst spot on CT side on every single map in Mouse. Bro, that is my dream if I'm a team with a load of firepower that currently is one-dimensional. Bring a guy like that in to shore up all the weaknesses, and then by the way, a guy who's good at playing bad spots. And then all of a sudden, I already have the heavy hitters like Xantares and Wicadia, mate. There's even Woxic in the mix. Like, I think this lineup low-key is like being slept on. I think this was the move of the roster mania for me. Is dope. Like, I already enjoyed their style. They had a very exciting style. I think they have the chance to be like a little bit more multifaceted. I could see them pushing aside even like a Fury or something, getting up to that level where the big dogs are, and all of a sudden, and then let's throw this in as well. I agree with you. I don't really know what you can do with Xantares. I mean, at this point in time, he just is Turkish CS. He's probably set in stone, isn't he? But you know what? If you are someone who's worked with people, by the way, he's the guy who brought Rez back from the dead. I'll give him a chance that he can do something, though. You know, he can be the last guy to have a crack at it. So, yeah, I'm being a bit optimistic, but I also just think actually this move warrants it. I like a lot of these moves. I like the way it's all coalesced together. And I agree on the Ash point. He deserves a crack at this. It would have been really sad for me if he did all that work for like the first 2 years and they never ever got a single good roster to ever work with. Like, even if this doesn't work, he's more than earned this shot. Come on, boys.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm with you. I'm just worried about the language. That's all.
Yeah. I'm with you.
That's like that. That always takes time. But I think regardless, I think you trust Kixon and Ash going forward, and that in itself is like that is so good. Like those two teaming up together, and then Aurora has got crazy backing, like the ability to.
Yeah, there's another thing, fl0m. Let's do the same thing as with BC Game. Now that they're international, mate, they also don't have that problem they had when they were Turkish. Say one player can't work or can't speak, you can get someone else now. It's an international team. Yeah. As long as most of these pieces are good, we can improve.
I mean, honestly, that roster's worst player is Woxic. Like
that's pretty good, right? That's pretty good.
That's a really good worst player to have.
Agreed.
That is fucking nuts.
Agreed.
And that's maybe the best player Ash has ever worked with. Like that's
up there, yeah.
Like so yeah, I have full confidence in that team's ability eventually. I just don't know if it takes off right away.
Yes,
just because that's a lot of emotion and language and frustration that will be built up. And my one like negative of that roster is I think Wicadia is unfortunately maybe hung out with Xantares a little too long, in the sense that he definitely went from like this quiet kid, and I'm doing armchair, therapist here a little bit, but man, he looks like he tilts a little bit harder than he used to. Now that he's starting to play better and he's been around Xantares longer, I feel like he's got a little bit of fire in him, which isn't a bad thing, but that can be a bad thing. You get the frustration of the language. Ash is like, oh fuck, what the hell are we doing? And you got Xantares and Wicadia just slamming the fucking desk like, what are we doing? Why did we go English or international? So there is an avenue where it could be bad, but I think Ash getting a shot with Aurora, getting this roster under him, and having Kixon paired up with him is just so it should be great because Kixon got the shaft too, man. I mean, like you said, he wasn't bad in Falcons.
He wasn't the reason they were losing.
It's Kerrigan. It's just Kerrigan, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is how it goes.
I always joke, he basically got that famous meme we've all done about Nork twice now, where he was replaced by like Device and fucking Odyssey or someone insane. I can't remember who it was. Oh, I can't even remember. Who gives a shit? Anyway, the point is, he was always insane. It's the same thing. You can't complain if you kick on. It's Kerrigan, bro. That's the ultimate person to replace. He's probably the GOAT. He's probably still the active GOAT right now. Like, what can you say? Also, I'll say this as well. I agree on the Xantares point, because here's the point that people have missed. This is how you can tell narratives take so many years to die, bro. This isn't the team from 3 years ago where Xantares has to drop 30 every time. Like, first of all, he's not even as good as Wicadia now. Like, if with the roster they have, where they've added like lesser pieces too for the structure, I can take the odd Xantares doesn't frag out on a map. I can probably still win the game. Like before, yeah, the old version, especially like Eternal Fire, that was like you win or die off of Xantares. Yeah, that's not even what we're doing anymore. Anyway, since we're talking about roster moves, we've got one more poly market for you. So I thought another one that was interesting because it was in the news recently was this one. Will BetBoom make a change before September? This is actually not the high. It's down at 37%. I'm going to tell you the reason why. Because obviously there was that news recently where a lot of people thought, will they sign fl0m himself since he had that success as the stand-in? And they went out of their way, I think it was the CEO again in an interview, to sort of be like, the buyout was too high or we didn't think it made sense. So I think that's made people scared because obviously playing this Chinese tournament back with Siren again. A lot of people, it seems like actually the traders think they won't make a move before September, even though they've had that cool run at the major. They were even in the playoffs. They were having an amazing game. They even beat Falcons, if people don't know, in the stage 3. Apparently, traders think they won't make a move. Again, as usual, is the number right? Will they make a move? Do you have any thoughts on the You pick which way to go here, fl0m. What do you think about BetBoom?
I think I never know what's going on with the roster, so I'd probably say they are. Just because, I mean, like, I feel like when people are even asking me who their 5 is for the major, I'm like, I don't remember, because they just keep like somebody's on the bench and they had a visa issue, whatever.
Yep.
They seem like very unstable. Also, did the BetBoom CEO really say they couldn't afford a buyout? Because really what we're learning then is if you own a gambling site, you don't have as much money as the guy with the actual crypto casino.
I'm going to guess it was all, I think it was also sort of implied, because the same thing happened with BC Game apparently, that like the buyout's really high. Unfortunately, that's implied like VC.
Yeah, I imagine, I guess if you're BetBoom trying to do a buyout, they're like, I could get a little bit more for this one. Yeah, something like that. But I'd say probably more likely, just because this roster has been unstable. Well, fuck, I don't know. Actually, if it's not going to be fl0m, I don't think they would. I mean, why would you at this point? I'm going back and forth. I really didn't think too much about this before we went into it. I won't lie to you. I think
you more agree with this then?
Not.
It doesn't happen like the traders say?
I'd actually say probably not, just because you also don't want to hang your hat on the major run. You want to be like, that was a great major run. We were like the only team to beat Falcons. But you were playing with like house money. You're the mental side of it. You don't even know who you're starting. Like everybody, like Maui was pointing to earlier, individually they're all playing insane. And you have a great caller in Boomich, who I think, I don't want to say he is Kerrigan, but I feel like the way I think of Boomich is more of somebody that can empower individuals.
Yeah.
So when you remove the threat of like pressure, or you remove pressure, and then you also empower the individuals, and then you have an IGL that can ride that wave that also is experienced. And Boomich was playing insane himself individually. Holy shit, he was absurd. And I just think you don't hang your hat on that. And then I think that with you telling me, I haven't kept up with it too much, that they don't want to keep fl0m. I think that they're just going to work with what they have now and then try to build instead of trying to chase what they had at the major, which is the right thing to do. I don't think you chase that. You're happy with the run that you had, but you continue to build the team that you had envisioned before. So I think these odds would be right.
I hope they make a change. I think Siren is bad. So I think that if they can find anything better than him, then I think it's absolutely worth taking the gamble. So I would say yes, because I feel like you just saw how good you could be with. I thought BetBoom going into that Chinese event should have probably been one of the firm favorites to win it. I'd say like top 3. But then when you lose to a FaZe clan that's still finding its own footing, I'm not really. And Siren is the worst player rating wise in that tournament for them. Only does
they
really
had viruses on their PC. How much validity are we giving this fucking tournament? I'm sorry. Like,
and that's when Siren played his best. And Siren played his best in the opening games there. So clearly
put it back on.
Yeah, he was liking the viruses, okay? No, I think that if they can find anybody for him, they will they'll make a move for it. So I would just move this one a smidgen up. I'm not saying it's a sure thing or anything like that, but there's got to be other options.
This is why, unfortunately, their question, it's even just moved down to 29% who should say that. This is why, unfortunately, it's went back up to 37. Just again, this isn't even a live show. I have no idea why this is happening. It just is okay. The key point is people are all over.
Just some action.
I know. So the problem is, I agree. I actually think they do need to make a move. And the reason why is, this is the bomber to me. People will forget this because it's true. It wasn't just a major. They'd already used fl0m as that standard at IM Atlanta. So what people forget is fl0m was also there for the win over Vitality. When they beat the Vitality team when they had practice, true. fl0m was there as a standard. At the time, he was actually standing in for, I think it was the Ledis, the guy. So he had to change roles, by the way, for the major, because then it was Siren that came out. I agree with Maui. I think Siren sucked. Even though the roles were weird, they somehow made it work at the major, though, bro. And then worst thing all is, I'm a fl0m's fan. I actually think it's a kind of a good player. Again, he doesn't have bonkers stats. He's just one of those guys who makes shit happen, bro. I like players like that where they like stimulate your game. And if you saw that kind of up-tempo, like we're fragging out and playing a bit loose, like you said, I thought that was really worked well for them. I would have loved to see that continue, even though I understood it was a visa situation. So it's not like they wanted to make that move. But if I'm them, look, I get that it's implied that by that news they went and tried to do it, and maybe the buyout was just too much. Unfortunately, that makes it sound like it's like $1 million or something crazy like that. Some amount that's just too much to do at this point in time. But my problem is if they don't do it, as seen at this tournament, I think they just go back to being just an all right team who's at the bottom of the tournaments, and they have the odd upset, but they're not going to be a playoff team. The team at the major had me hyped, bro. Like, I know it could never have kept going. It was going to end eventually, but they kept going through like all the stages. It was crazy. Like, as I said, they beat Falcons 2-0. Like, for reals, every other team was having these nightmare 3 maps, all the they just beat them, mate. So I just wanted to see how that played out. I wanted to see what would happen if he'd have been here. So, but I agree with you, unfortunately. I don't think they will do it. I think actually the traders are right. It won't happen, at least not before September. I imagine they'll just play a few more months and then they'll eventually find out they should have done it. So sadly, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Okay. Now we will go to my good point. And my good point, this is even though it's technically BC Game Boys, I've spun it in a certain way though, which is, do you know what? Since I myself have done that thing, this is why I don't actually crow as much as people thought I would, Maui, about Falcons winning the major and Carrigan winning. Because I've also done that take with every version of Simple playing any fucking game of CS2 for like 3 years now. I said it when he was a stand-in Falcons. I said it when they made BC Game. I said, I've done it. My copium and hopium for Simple is levels, it's over 9,000 points, and the rating's only out of 10. So with that said, here's why I'm going to actually be fair and give all of you an olive branch. Here's the real reason why the BC game roster becoming relevant and having actual top players like Senzu in the mix, and then even interesting gambles like the Mega Sky. Here's why that's actually really cool. Because you know what? I can't make any excuses for Simple's level of play anymore. Like, I still don't think to this day that he's actually just not that good at CS2 and just average. But I think he's never truly committed to like the grind of trying to be the best player and really trying to play like truly top tier CS, not beating your teammates, not thinking, well, he'll be out the team in a month or not getting it, just playing the game. And the reason why I bring this up is, in my opinion, if you have this roster now, this second season of 2026, you will know at the end of this season if Simple will ever be a great player again. If he isn't going to do it with this roster, mate, they're not just going to they will keep signing players, but eventually he just retires or he moves away from the game. If he's willing to tank another season where he plays a bit, but then he doesn't, or they get eliminated early and they just if he's checked out, then you're never going to be in the game again, bro. This will be the one that really tests it. So I think actually, after this season, we can shit or get off the pot. If he doesn't do it in this season, then don't worry about it. Maybe he's just an old legend that never cared enough about CS2 or never had the right team or never had the right mindset. But if he can actually come back, so I think he's still shown the potential. You've seen, bizarrely, this is why I actually suspect, by the way, he just doesn't care. Have you ever noticed how the only games he actually pops off in is when they're playing like the Vitalities of the world, the absolute best teams? He always seems to dial in for a map. Have you noticed that? It seems to like bring something out of him. But his problem is, you put him at the bottom of a PGL against some random shitters, they'll lose the game. They won't even win a map. So that's my good point. I think this season solves the Simple drama. He either is never coming back as a top player or he'll actually show signs of becoming like a top 10 player again. There you go. What do you think, fl0m?
I think, what's your version of success? Because I don't think there's any way in hell they make the major. Just the way VRS works. It's not ability. It's not ability, okay. Thorin. I'm literally talking about landscape. Like, what? So you're.
You go to a bunch of those tier 2 lands, you win them, get in. It's not a hot take point made. They will be making the major. Simple will be a top 10 player by the end of the season. Not on HLTV. That's a website. Thorin's at top 10. They will do it all. Listen,
Okay.
Simple
I
can
just
do
want to
anything.
know.
wrong.
I was trying to quantify it because in my head, like them making the major would be a monumental achievement.
That's big. Yeah.
Because they're at 0. Like they're gonna be at 0.
Yep.
There are ways for them to catapult forward in VRS, and I'm not saying it's impossible.
Yeah.
But that to me is like step 1. So I wanted to like
Okay.
I like the good point. I just don't know. I mean, knowing how the internet works, it definitely won't end the simple debate.
No, of course not. Yeah.
So
Sure.
But I mean, I am with you in the sense that I feel like this is BC game at least made moves that make them relevant to talk about. Where previously it kind of felt like a clown car. I think Prof mentioned it once, how like we can't take this team serious. We need to just kind of like put them in the bin until they actually do something. And I was along with that. And honestly, I'd like to do that with this roster, but unfortunately, they went and got Senzu and Mzinho. So I literally like can't do that anymore. They used money to overpower my brain, which is fine. But
haven't they done the meme out of Django Unchained before? It was just you had my curiosity because of the freak element, like you're saying, simple and random. But now they have your attention, though, don't they? Now you actually have to seriously watch them.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna lie about it. Like I'm definitely gonna at least be checking the results page of their tier 2 events that they're at. I'm probably not gonna be watching.
And by the way, when I make that analogy, let me make it clear. That's just an analogy for the cool line. I'm not implying in any way signing pro players is like signing slaves. That's just a completely coincidental connection between the pop culture reference I made. Anyway, Flo, back to you.
I don't think you had to like quantify that, but yeah, back to me. Yeah, so I think you're wrong in the sense that I don't think the simple debate ends. I don't think I'm gonna feel better about simple one way or the other because he's not gonna be playing those teams that you're talking about in the next 6 months. He's not gonna play any of them until if they make the major. Like we're not gonna see.
No, they're gonna. Here's the thing: you're being too glass half empty again. They're gonna cook the online scene. They're gonna get into those PGLs. They're gonna make a few playoffs. They're gonna be in an IM China.
No, hell no. He's gonna jump out Mirage window versus fucking Eco to farm.
That just lives rent free in your head.
Why did you do that?
I know.
Why did you do that?
The worst thing is,
just get me the fuck out. What do you mean?
By the way, here's how you know, fl0m. Here's how you know that we all did just watch them like a car wreck. We all know exactly. That's not even like hypothetical. We all know the round you're talking about. We all saw that. It was ridiculous.
Like it's unbelievable.
True.
So you're telling me that same team with that same player who's teamed up with Taz and the brand new Magis IGL is going to be the team that solves the simple debate, which is this total like, nah, you're fuck me. All right, you win.
I know. You have to understand, I'm riding high off that Carrigan Falcon shit. Anything I say could be right now.
Fuck, man, you're fucking high off of it for sure. I think we got to wait till the major because if they make the major, then we actually get to see the things that you talk about. I just don't think they're going to make the major because I know like it's just a grind, man. Okay. It's a grind. And you literally set your own stage for why they won't succeed in that because Simple isn't going to be playing Vitality. He's going to be playing. Let me just scroll through VRS here real quick. Let me pull up a team. Let me see. They're going to be playing K27 and Sinners and Gentlemates and Metasport. And they're going to get farmed by Malik one time. And Electronic's going to lose his fucking mind. And then they're going to bomb out of 2 more lands. And then we're going to have to cut 2 more players. And then that's where we're going to be at. But I hope they make the major because that would be absolute fucking content. Yeah, my co-stream numbers will be through the roof. The aura of Simple will get me 30,000 viewers on the YouTube algorithm, and I can't read chat because it's all in Russian. That would be sick. I'm here for it, but I just
also that's even an angle I hadn't even sold. To be fair, also actually just Counter-Strike itself would benefit massively from Simple. Still, by the way, the most popular player, just actually being relevant again. Yeah, absolutely. You can see ESL's already horny as fuck to do every single piece of content they can with him. It's just irrelevant because he goes last place. So you got to give us something Simple. Come on, give us a little bit to work with.
Yeah. So I hope you're right. I just don't think you are. I think that's. I
like all fans.
Everything you said to be true. Yeah, I'd love to be glass half full. I just can't get there. Okay, but I'm gonna pay attention now because they got Senzu and Mzinho.
Listen, so the glass. In my case, the glass isn't even half full of water. It's pure alcohol. Don't worry about it. Yeah, it's Russian vodka. Yeah, of course. But don't worry about it.
It's fucking something.
Me and electronic.
I would just say the likelihood of them being able to make the major is probably a little higher than you'd want to give them credit for because I'll just say if BC Game can run one of the most profitable, popular crypto books on the internet, surely one of those guys can crunch the numbers and say, attend these VRS lands. Just like, remember Paravision prior to Budapest, they didn't even beat a single top 20 team on LAN or whatever going into that event. It was almost like they're one of the few teams where I actually said, no, they gamed VRS and made me dislike the system. And I think if BC Game, they just need to funnel the right resources into this project and don't let it just be simple and electronic decide what tournaments you attend. Literally get one of the stats mathematicians on your books to work with the team to simply plan out their calendar, to attend the proper events, to max out their VRS points, and then you'll get to the major. I think it's actually more plausible that they make it than I would have wanted to admit. And this is kind of circling back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show, where I was seeing the BC Game team is a half full glass now that they have mzinho. Dude, this team should legitimately carve up tier 3. Like, if they're not carving up tier 3, then I don't even need Simple to pop off. Is the funny thing about this team now. I actually, like, with Senzu and mzinho alone, as long as they speak kindergarten level of English, they will be completely fine.
Then why did Patch not make the major with Senzu? Why?
Because they didn't have both. They didn't have both of those guys.
Also, technically, like, they did get him really close to the end of the VRS thing as well. They got him like last minute too.
They didn't dominate anyone. Like, they didn't do shit. Like, Senzu was mid. If anything, he probably lowered his fucking stock playing with that team than me sitting there.
All I'm gonna say is, I don't know if he really believed in that team. He was fucking AWPing and shit, bro. Like, and trying to no-scope people. You know what I mean? He didn't give a fuck.
Come on. To the major, but I don't know. I'm just saying, it's not like Senzu just showed up and dropped 30 every fucking time on Passion. And these teams are not. You're not going to a tier 1 event, getting your stuff all set up, having these tournament items. You're going to a fucking event, showing up where there might be a fucking virus on your PC and you got to go play. I don't know. There's levels to this, and it's just not as consistent, I think, as. It's not that I don't think that they can do all the things you're saying. It's just there's so much variance is all I'm saying. When you're in that,
I think Senzu can pull him through. He dropped 70 kills versus FaZe Clan at a Draculan. 70 kills. All right, he can still farm. He can still farm noobs.
You guys are right, because like I said, my viewership will be through the roof. So I hope you guys are right. I just think there's a lot of fucking random shit that happens when you're at that level. That especially, it's not like. This team is known with some of these players to have some crazy strong mental where they're going to be thrilled about it. You know what I mean? They're going to if they end up losing, and it could be really bad, man. It could be nasty. Like,
sure.
Oh, the mentality on this team is going to be like a roller coaster for sure. I hope they release a vlog with every single tournament they play, because that's going to be just blockbuster. Voice comms, uncut voice comms will pay back everybody's salaries, millions of views every single time. It's going to be unbelievable,
and probably removed off of YouTube. I don't know what to watch.
It'll actually, if you release their voice comms, they will be banned from ESL tournaments because they'll have so many slurs in international language.
Well, here's the beauty. As you saw with my crazy take there, in theory, anyone who has a mic or just access to even a phone could actually just have a show, couldn't they? They could put their own opinions out in the world. But if they were to do so, they might like to use today's sponsor, which is Zen AI, because basically this can just take care of all the things you need to just really quickly make some sort of content out there in the world. Doesn't have to be like a 3-hour podcast. Doesn't have to be some high level. All you need is you just have to have a voice box, some ideas and air to transmit the vibrations through, and it can take care of all sorts of other things out there. Like, it can basically make you all the things you need: a podcast, a reel, a TikTok. You don't need to have any production skills whatsoever. Also, they call it vibecasting. They will actually pay new vibecasters to create their first vibecast. You can create like a sports cast about your favorite team or sport or whatever, and obviously if you do it this way, you can even get paid right at the outset. So it's kind of a fun angle to do it, as well as just getting your opinions out there into the world. You can do it live as a game's happening. You don't have to do it later on. You can do analysis after a game. You could bring on a co-host. You could find someone else who loves the same sport or esport as you and get them on the Zen AI network and do it all, etc. You only need to have a phone in theory. You don't have to have some big tech setup. You don't need all professional gear. It can do it all for you. It's got all sorts of AI things that can fix the sound and all sorts of other, edit it for you, etc. Make clips for you. You can collaborate with an AI producer, conversation. You can just basically tell it using English, do this, do that, it'll do it all for you. I have to use humans for that at my current point in time. You just hit record, you can have a conversation, you can plan something out if you want. So at the moment, it is currently in invite-only beta, so join the waitlist today for a chance at early access. Go to zen.ai to sign up or head to our show notes for a direct link. That's zen.ai to sign up. And then you too could be putting your opinions out there in the world that one day someone like Kassad might say, that's insane. And then just 5 minutes later circle around to agreeing with you because that's his gimmick, isn't it? Anyway, speaking of gimmicks, on this show, we talk about things that are ugly in CS. So fl0m, this is your time, homie. What is ugly in CS now? Because I do know, obviously, the topic he's going to do, but he's promised us a new angle on it. So it's going to be a fresh angle. What is ugly right now?
Well, I did tell you the angle, and you agreed it was somewhat fresh, which is I do apologize for bringing up something that might be a repeat on here, but I do want to say it's kind of what matters most to me, so it'll kind of make sense.
Yeah.
Which is my ugly point is NACS is the worst it's ever been, but the big thing that pisses me off is there's not a pathway out. We're in a perpetual cycle, and honestly, you kind of triggered me earlier, and I almost went on that same
Yeah.
Earlier.
The liquid one.
It comes down to the foundation of these organizations that are in North America, and it comes down to the tournament organizers as well, which is we used to have a North American tournament organizer, a North American hub, which was ESEA, was bought by ESL. Then basically now it's just a website that just purely exists in namesake, and they just throw a little ESEA tag on Face It when you play leagues. It completely crushed the entire competitive scene in terms of how it works in North America, where we're just in a wheel of just queuing Face It. There's no real team drive or aspect. There's no academy teams in North America. There's no actual pathway to any of these top teams in North America. So we're recycling the same people, and it's just created a fucked up landscape that we have no way out of. And actually, to my point earlier where I said VRS is good, I think this is also VRS has made this part worse, which is because they don't have the franchising spots and the way some of these organizations were built. They don't, and without the foundation of like academy teams and having staff of developing actual talent, like from younger spots, we're just now stuck in a situation where they can't develop anything. They can't do anything. They're just completely stuck with what they have. And there's no pathway forward. Challenger used to lead into Pro League, and like these seasons used to make a lot more sense, where now it's like really muddied up with like, how do you actually progress your way forward internally inside the scene? And you get like VRS, so like you're part of the circuit, but really, does that really move you up in any way into Challenger? And then what point do orgs start to look at you? And it comes from, like I said, companies that are European based, that are running North American leagues. And this isn't to say that they're like doing something horrible. It's just very clearly, if you're a North American player, you always feel like an afterthought. So what's the point of like actually investing into the game? Like, why would you play Counter-Strike as a North American specifically compared to like other esports? I tried to play a match when I was still competing with my stream team. And every time, just to kind of give an example, that we had like an issue, the North American people that run the leagues actually can't make decisions without European approval from different people, and you just get stuck. So then you end with qualifiers overlapping each other. You end with players having to pick between different tournaments. You have organizations who now think that these teams are just skipping events, but in reality, the company that is involved with this stuff just literally isn't like taking care of it because it's an afterthought. Because the game itself, Counter-Strike, is European. It is big in Europe. It is the best region. It's the best, biggest everything. But without the smaller regions, Counter-Strike will become boring. And this is the ugly, the ugly truth is as much as everybody likes to punch down on North American Counter-Strike, without it, Counter-Strike is way less fun. And just like when we're gonna lose MongolZ, like the relevancy, it just crushes everything. So my ugly point is there's no pathway out because these organizations, whether it's teams or tournament organizers, have done absolutely zero to really look at what the problem is in North America. And they basically just do the equivalent of like, oh, well, we put a tournament there, so we've helped North American Counter-Strike. Like, no, you haven't. Like, I would love to do more, but I don't have infinite fucking money glitch over here. Like, you're basically just running one tournament a year. Congrats. A fat fucking streamer in his house can do that once a year. Like, you're not doing anything to actually help the scene. And Now, when you have like Liquid, for example, who's so far down in the doldrums, they can't even get like an academy team. Energy can't really like. There's no like actual system in place in our region to develop anything. Like we can't. What do you? If you get an academy team right now, I'd love to tell them to go get one, but they're gonna play what advanced, and then maybe show up to a Fragadelphia, and then you can't play in my land because Liquid's so bad right now. I invited them, and I'm waiting for them to accept an invite to my land. So you can't have your academy team there, and it's created this perpetual cycle of we're just stuck. And if you can't develop any talent, we're just gonna continuously get worse, and that's where I get frustrated. And I don't know if that's a new angle or if I've just added more context to why I get frustrated with this, but that's
Okay.
my ugly take, I guess, is we're fucked.
I like the point about the academy teams. How it's like completely unrealistic to imagine any of the orgs actually getting one, because what value would that actually bring somebody like M80? I mean, right now for North American teams, M80 has the highest VRS standing, and I feel like it wouldn't make any sense if you're M80 who just won ESL Challenger League to get an advanced team. Like, because at that point you're just kind of digging through. Advance is fine, but it's not really. Are you really going to invest in the talent there? Because what could you actually provide them that would be worth them sticking around? Because I've talked about the economics of being a North American player before, where unless I think maybe like the one hotbed of talent that is completely untapped, and I don't know if anything's growing over there, would probably it would have to be a Mexican team. It would have to be, because it's the only way that you could have a country that you could pay something like $500 a month per player, and they would actually care about that kind of money. Because in America, nobody would give a damn about $500 a month. That's almost like laughable in terms of wages for basically that's minimum wage. That's basically minimum wage at best for a lot of these guys, and you can't even really rent an apartment in anywhere. You can't rent an apartment anywhere in America for $500 a month. So there's nothing you could even accomplish with that. And so they would not. The problem is you would try to sponsor those guys so they can focus on playing, but then you wouldn't be able to give them a low enough amount of money. So I think I don't know. I think the way out is Mexico, guys. That's my hot take right now. We need to actually I think Mexico's GDP, it is rising. Okay, there has to be people with good internet connections and computers that live close enough to Dallas that like Monterrey might actually be where the next top North American team comes from. Monterrey, Mexico.
Can I come back in here real quick and just connect this? No, not the Mexico GDP part, but like this is I absolutely agree with you, and this is kind of like where it just is stuck. Is why I get frustrated with like ESL and Blast, for example, because this is where I feel like these problems can be solved, is like trying to identify ways to incentivize teams to actually have something where it makes sense, like create a structure that makes sense. But they're European-based companies, and they bought out the North American version of it and just fucking killed it. So nobody cares. And Torbull, basically the big man himself that was leading all that, is just an advisor to ESL. He's out. He's like, I'm vested, I'm chilling. And you just there's nobody trying to fix it even. Like that's what like that's why I get so like I'm going around to colleges like, see, you think it's Mexico. I think it's subsidizing players' pathways through colleges and trying to get them to realize, and I've had conversations with different colleges and people that run the esports side to get them to understand that VRS actually makes it incredibly accessible, and they get it. They actually, like the few that I've talked to are like genuinely trying to get involved and then pick up players. And I think that's actually the more realistic way to get players.
Because then the college can subsidize the team and the salaries and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you get a degree while you're doing it. Yeah, it's good.
You get a degree, so then that way you can justify, even if I don't make this, right? I'm investing in myself.
Even if you semi-pro, it's worth it.
But like, dude, imagine if Blast or ESL were doing it instead of my fat ass sitting in my fucking office. That's what, like, and that's what I mean. Is that's what we've lost. Is like, I'm glad people view me in a positive way as like a guy that's trying to do all this stuff, but it shouldn't be me.
Yes.
Like, I don't want it to be me. I would love Blast or ESL just to be like, hey, like, we're gonna appoint somebody like head of North America that will actually have power to make decisions that will help the circuit and actually develop things that make sense for this region. Because they don't do this anywhere. They just focus on Europe, and then they say, well, this works in Europe, so it should work here. And that's not how it fucking works. And they do that with FaZe. They do it with ESL. They do it with ESCA. They do it with everything. And then they're just like, well, here's your tournament, so you can't say we're ignoring you. Please buy our tickets and come to our events and appreciate that we support you. It's like, man, it's fucking. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring that what you're talking about in terms of how do you even get players there and why I feel like that's the disconnect. And I just wanted to add a little bit more. I'll shut up now.
Here's what I hate about this. I actually had an angle like this that I did on a show, but I realised this angle, unfortunately, just not the right era to do it in, is it? Which is, I actually think I could just shame team owners because, you know, if you were to write down right now the top 30 esports orgs in the world, bro, like 15 of them are probably from NA. Like, there are even American orgs that people don't even know are American because they just have other games in like Dota and so and they just have different rosters. Like, by the way, spoiler, isn't FaZe Clan, when they passed roster, one of the most popular teams? They are American. That's an American org. So Cloud9, Team Liquid, go down the fucking list, Sentinels, 100 these are all orgs that are from NA, which, by the way, have millions and millions and millions of dollars. They have giant budgets. They have access to massive sponsors. There's nothing. So here's what's funny, right? I could just do the Patriot angle of like, look, Jason Lake can't be the only person who's an owner that gives a shit about having a good NA team in an esports game like Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike was even traditionally European and North American. Those are the two major regions. So one thing I hate is this, right? You don't even have to do that angle. Forget that angle for a moment. I'll give you a very selfish profit motive drive to do it, which are this presumably what these team orgs care about. Hence why currently they have the foreign teams. Here's one reason why ultimately, put it this way, I don't even need you to have a whole NA team. Can we at least have like one or two NA players in your squad though? There are good NA players. Like, can't you have it be like, yeah, it's a European team, but it has like an NA player for a fan to latch onto? Because here's why. As I just said earlier, it's not just teams with money. There's still a lot of sponsor money and a giant sponsor market in North America for esports and in general in media and sports anyway. And surely if you are an NA org, your main connections are the NA sponsors and you want to appeal to, ultimately, who do NA sponsors want you to buy the product? NA fans! Your own fucking sponsors want you to have NA fans. So whatever you can do to get NA fans, in theory, actually helps you in the long run in games like Counter-Strike and beyond. So one of the things I think is a bomber is, I do agree on the TO side as well. Here's why for TOs you should want NA to have good teams and have a good league. Because ultimately, you only have Europe right now. If you go to South America, you do it for the viewership and because you fill the stadium because it's cheap. If you go to Asia, you do it because it's a cheap ticket. It's like, you can say it's progress and we're developing things and you have a load of fans because again, it's a cheap ticket and people just go. But if you ever want to have an arena event in the future, this is what people want in esports if they're TOs down the line in 5 years, where you can start to sell like sports level tickets. America's the place to go, mate. You've even seen right now with the World Cup, they have bigger stadiums and more fans there than you would in some of the big European games because people will go and pay mega bucks for a ticket. So I actually think ultimately, even though I normally joke, I'm not North American, so why should I care about it? I care because actually, if you want esports to be bigger and Counter-Strike esports to be bigger, you have to access NA. Like, that's like a dormant giant that if you ever wake it up would be fucking huge in every respect. So I look, you've raised some good points. One of the saddest things about this conversation is if we could have even had this like intervention even just 2 years ago, you're right, it would have been so much more painless, fl0m, because what you could have told someone like Team Liquid or FaZe is, look, if you want an international roster, do that with the main team, but then have an academy team that's all NA players, and all you do is what Thorin just said. Every time one or two of them get good and you need a spot, you just pop one or two NA players into your main lineup. Like, this is why I know this would work. FaZe was already popular, but bro, when it was FaZe that just had Elysian, that Austin Major, if they'd have ever actually made that playoff run, that building would have fucking blown the roof off me. People were so ready to pretend like, all I need's one. Just give me one NA player. That's all I need.
I was there, man. I was one of them.
I'm with you.
Just give me one.
I genuinely think it would be better for all of esports if NA was relevant again. It was a destination for events and had big teams and had up-and-coming talent. I'm with you. Even though right now, I agree, a lot of the pipelines either weren't built or they've been severed or Valorant's taken, etc. So, but at the same time, I think when you've got a dormant giant like that, if someone can figure out the magical solution, you could turn this around quick, though. In a couple of years, you could be back in the game and you could be relevant. You could have rising talents again. So I'm with you. I even like the collegiate angle because actually the point as you're making there is the reason the collegiate angle is clever is because it means you don't actually have to pay as much from sponsorship because the college pays for the sporting element. Also, if you get the scholarship, now the guy doesn't have to actually make it as a pro at the end of it, fl0m. If he ends up being awesome, cool, maybe he's so good after 2 years he quits anyway and goes and joins FaZe Clan. But if he doesn't, then his years weren't wasted grinding Philadelphia, trophies, he gets a degree at the end of it and goes and has a real career. By the way, I'll tell you one area that's mad underrated, and you'll know this, fl0m and Maui, but fans won't. That is a way easier sell to your parents of like, I'm actually going to college. It's a real college. I'm on their team, by the way. It even makes esports seem more legit. They're going to pay part of my scholarship because I'm really good at the game, and I'll get a degree at the end. So if it doesn't even work out, I just get that. By the way, and even if you're on a team, by the way, like the fucking Passion UAs of the world, that's a hard sell to your parents. Like, what, you're at like you're essentially almost in the minor leagues of your sport. You're not earning a degree. You're wasting your words. If anything, your parents are going to tell you to quit now. I'm talking about someone like Grim who's made it as far as we're concerned. We wish there was more Grim. So actually, the college angle is slept on. I'll tell you that. That is not. I know from League of Legends where they had like a thing like this from Riot. It's not at all developed, bro. They've barely dipped their foot in the water there. I'm with you. I actually think that's like a low key, like cool new path you could have to bring people through. It incentivizes them.
Man. That's actually, but I just wish it was that. But like, it would mean so much more if it was a blaster and ESL.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
It doesn't mean as much. Like, I'm just like a streamer with like a tournament that I've run that I'm like, I could try to run more and like give you guys something cool to play.
Yeah.
But, like, that's what I mean is like, because nobody at Blaster ESL is North American or empowers any of them. There's no way to create that.
But it's weird. I'm even thinking, as you're saying, bro, it doesn't even need to be a giant league. Let's have it where you have, like, I don't know, like a fucking spring bash event where you do it when it's the week off and all the kids at the college can come to the arena. And there's a million ways you can imagine you could activate this as a cool concept, couldn't you? The joke would be even hire people like you to be the fucking casters and the people doing the show matches and things. That's another thing, by the way. That's the last thing I'll throw on this point. There's so many people have so much goodwill towards this that they'd even want to be part of it. There's so many people in NA would want to be a part of a project like this and help it blow up. Anyway, that's enough dreaming about NA. Maui, what is your ugly point?
My ugly point is it's specifically ugly because I'm glad that this player is getting a chance on G2, but I also think that this is a very strange move for G2 to make it, given their recent season. So the point is just that, I think it more is a springboard for just discussion on the topic itself of Wrinkle going to G2 for SunPayus. I think this is just it's a very peculiar move because behind the scenes, or kind of through what was given, it's not even behind the scenes, it's what's given through interviews and how even G2 themselves acted at Rio when Hunter wasn't available to play, as they made SunPayus the in-game leader. It was also kind of implied that SunPayus helped out with some of the calling, the secondary calling, and I feel like they desperately needed it. I feel like they actually really needed a guy who understood the type of vision that Saw had for the game and could help enact that live in a match. And sure, SunPayus didn't jump off the page consistently with superstar opping performances, but there were really only a handful of oppers who, for the past 3 months, were really definitively better than him. And they're kind of the names that you expect to be better than him too. People like Zywoo and Monasi. And I counted it down. If you just, past 3 months is a little bit weird given that it's been a player break for about a month of that. But if you look at that and you just sort by top 20, SunPayus is around 7th or 8th, depending if you want to include Afro in that list, because Afro obviously just kind of recently got in there with some kind of stage 1 or stage 2 performances. And SunPayus is right there, and he's even above some people that you're not really looking to replace. Like, nobody's really talking about replacing Torzi on a regular basis. Everybody was super hyped about Sizzy too. These are names that SunPayus has better numbers than, and then you look at the guys who are above him, and it's obviously Zywoo, Monasi, Shiro, Moladoy. Those are guys that are great. And I think Wrinkle, I tweeted out after watching Wrinkle at Yala Compass that this guy's going to be competing for big trophies one day, but he was making a lot of mistakes during the end of his tenure with NIP. In those NIP overtime chokes that they kept falling into, especially at Budapest at the Star Ladder Major, I want to say at least 4 of those chokes were basically because Wrinkle just overpeaked in man advantage situations and just wanted to die. Like, he's giving up fights that he has no business giving up, peeking into angles with an op that he could already just train onto an angle. And so hopefully Wrinkle went back to the drawing board and reflected on some of his shortcomings on that NIP team, because I do think that his potential is very high. I do think that aggressive opping is such a rare case. You don't see many guys going for the kind of moves that Wrinkle does, and I think that he could change the face of a team. But another aspect for me with G2 is that, to me, the elephant in the room is clearly Nerds. Like, this guy is nowhere close to what he was back when he was playing with Saw and SunPayus and Snappy back on ENCE, where he was the rookie of the year when he was playing with them. And his time on Liquid was really poor. His time on G2 so far has been very bad. And even just by the eye test of the kind of moves he makes as an individual, this guy is so incredibly error prone. He's totally a noob hunter. He's totally like trying to farm eco frags like crazy. And I think that he is a huge detriment to the team right now, more than anybody else, let alone SunPayus. So I think that this is a very strange move for G2 to be making right now. And that's why I put it in the ugly, because I like Wrinkle. I think he has a lot of potential, but I think that there are bigger issues to address on this G2.
I agree with everything you said, but your time on NAP doesn't count. And I think Wrinkle, at the end of the day, the things that you cited were more so, if I remember right, towards the end of his tenure on NIP as well. And I think that comes from a position of that team was ass. Every version of NIP was ass. There's no version of NIP that we could even probably cite all 5 players at one time. It was a clown car. It was a team that was irrelevant, and the only person you were watching was Wrinkle to see if he was going to basically have the game that he was supposed to have to carry them out of it. So I agree with everything that you said, actually, about SunPayus, about Nerds, and Nerds really being probably the bigger upgrade potential. But I would counter you by saying, what's harder to find right now, a rifler or an opper? So they probably feel this need to, and like you said, SunPayus, second voice, like knows the vision, the Saul. But I mean, let's be real. Saul probably was the one that signed off on this. I guarantee you he's got full control of that roster. So he also is saying, like, when it comes to oppers, it's it's so funny because I really do just like, yes, everything you were saying is so right. But if you're G2, you're never winning with SunPayus. You're never winning. You are not lifting a trophy with SunPayus. And that, I think, is what G2 is saying here. It's not that Nerds isn't the problem. It's not that SunPayus is some terrible opper. It's that the way that their team is right now, they need an opper that can actually take over a game and win them that game. And I think they're just taking a gamble on him. And I think that Nerds is going to be the first one out the door when G2 sees an opportunity to, if he doesn't get his shit together. And I think he's far easier to replace. I think Nerds' roles are so easy, bro, to swap him out of there and put in a... Yeah, man. The finding a player to replace Nerds is going to be super easy when they feel like that time is needed. The time to find an opper that you think actually can maybe reach a different level and what oppers are available is so small. I mean, you're gonna have to basically go for like a Wrinkle, or you're gonna have to go for a completely less. You're gonna have to go for like a Jorko, right? And I think that G2 is really just seeing this as more of an opportunity to try to shoot their shot with an opera that has a higher ceiling. And Saw, I think, thinks he has the ability to maybe get more out of him and to elevate G2 as a roster, and then give Nerds that time to find himself again. And if not, they just probably think he's replaceable, so they're not. They'd rather wait for the right person for Nerds than like try to go and make a rush decision. But where on the other hand, the opera, you might as well just start shooting your shot now, because SunPayus probably isn't going to help you win a championship. If the best thing you can say about your opera is he's a great secondary voice, that's just not an opera that's like that. That's just not who it's. I feel so fucked up saying it, but yeah, he's just not going to help you win. But I also still agree with everything you said. Like, I think Nerds is the bigger problem. I think SunPayus wasn't really the issue. And I think that he did a lot for that team in terms of bridging the gap with Hunter and Saw and making sure that team has a stable environment for them to perform. But you got to take the risk at this point. Like, is your goal to be a top 5 team, or does G2 actually want to win? And I think G2 has said even repeatedly, and I think their roster moves have reflected that think of how relevant they've stayed while losing Nico and Modesty. I mean, you really have to give credit to them for that. And so, yeah, it's weird. Yes, you're absolutely right, Maui. But also, I think it's time to just see what you can do with an opera, because there's just never a good time to do it, and operas are really hard to figure out. And if Saw thinks he can get more out of Wrinkle, and we've seen how high his individual ability is, why not shoot your shot while you wait and see what really prime rifler becomes available that you might want to drop the bag on if you're G2, that we know they kind of still have probably from that Falcons deal. So yeah, that's where I'm at with it. It's a weird one. I agree with you. It's just, fuck it. Let's just see what Wrinkle's got. Why not?
I agree with the criticisms and even the positives about SunPayus. My problem is I also do agree with that last sentiment, right? G2 had one of the lowest ceilings of any top 10 team. Like, I know they did win that one blast, but that at this point in time is just once in a blue moon, mate. Like, that never came even close to happening ever again. Like, they would just make playoffs and immediately bow out. Like, they weren't even the team that was relevant. Like, actually, the joke is one of the best games they've had recently was just actually almost beating Falcons in the fucking group stage of this major. That's about it. And then obviously the Spirit game. And then, by the way, that Spirit with no coach as well. That you're supposed to win that one when they don't have a coach, for fuck's sake. They had a toy frog behind them. Like, you haven't actually one of the most revered coaches in the scene who runs your whole project. So actually, to me, if you can't win that game, then you are never winning a fucking major with this 5-man lineup. So even though I agree, like, if we were doing it by, like, you know, odd one out, like, who is the worst person? Yeah, obviously it should be Nerds. By the way, the other person's fucking Hunter. What job are you doing as an IGL? I'll even say this. Anytime you're telling me your AWPer that isn't actually an elite AWPer, he's just like a good AWPer with intangibles and he can play some shit. Anytime again you're bragging that he's a secondary caller, homie, why isn't your main caller really good? Like, he seems like he has problems. It just sounds like you've band-aided your other mistake you've made with a second guy. Here's why though, I'll loop back to the fl0m angle, because as you probably saw on social media, I actually think this gamble is worth it too. I can't know if Wrinkle will be good, but here's why. Because I do think in this project, it isn't one of the ones where you're going to find out years later the guy will go, actually, people said it was my project, but I didn't have any control. This looks like every move they made was Saw's move. Like, if you think about it, he brought back SunPayus to replace fucking mzonzi, but that wasn't even actually a terrible move, even though, yes, SunPayus had been off in the wilderland of Falcons. Wasn't he sort of right? Didn't they end up being half decent with him? Didn't he get better? Now, the problem is he's hit a ceiling. He can't get any more better than he is. And then also, let's throw this in, he did the same thing with Nerds. He brought his boy Nerds back, who used to be with him in Heroic, and he gambled up. That gamble hasn't worked so far. Here's the angle everyone seems to have missed. I actually shocked no one said it. I'm the only one who's made this connection somehow. Bro, Saw used to work with Snappy. Snappy was Wrinkle's most recent IGL. I'm pretty sure Saw must have hit up his boy and been like, dude, he was in your team. I know you guys kicked him and benched him for Stout. So why was that? You know, what were the things? What was he good at? What was he like in scrims? I imagine he's done that. And also, if you don't know, Snappy's actually a pretty forthcoming person in that sense. If you reach out to him and you're a legit individual, I can tell you, me and Maui know this. You could do this as an analyst or something. He'll tell you things about your team. Or if you ask him a former player, like I did this when Spinks joined Vitality, why is he not as good as he was in your team? What do you think's off? He's quite a forthcoming guy in that sense. So I think this is like an informed gamble by Saw. I think he did this because what he thought was, I actually have a lot of pieces. The reason I think their ceilings isn't that high, I think they have a lot of pieces that either just can't be like star players, or even worse, in their style, are just a bit meh, they're just all right. And the one thing you have to say about Wrinkle, this is why we hyped him in NIP, is, bro, this guy definitely makes shit happen, mate. He gets it cracking. This guy just goes for shots, mate. Like, so if you want to throw someone in there to be just a little firecracker who doesn't even have to be your best player, just to make shit happen in the game, he's going to do that. Like, this guy on T-side will go for a whole bunch of opening picks, kills. He actually, the joke is he thinks he is simple. Like, he just goes for every fucking shot, mate. So, low-key, I don't hate that as like a crazy gamble that you're going to create the environment that'll work where maybe it didn't work in NIP. And by the way, I agree on that one. It's just looking right now like everyone in NIP ends up sucking. It's the liquid problem all over again, isn't it? Like, they're a talent suppression machine. So I don't hate this that much. I certainly think it's a massive gamble, but I think it's an appropriate gamble too, because actually, like implied in this conversation, if this gamble doesn't work, you're not signing one more player. You're going to rehaul the whole team. You're going to like kick Hunter, or you're going to have to get a new superstar rifler instead of Nerds. Like, and also, last thing to say is, it doesn't look like they've actually spent a lot of money since they got all that money for mzonzi and Nico. Like, let's be real, I'm guessing SunPayus wasn't expensive. Nerds looks like it was almost like one of those twistily swaps where you take Malbs, we take Nerds. You didn't spend much on that. I imagine this is pretty cheap too. It doesn't seem like there's a big market to get Wrinkle. Let's be real, he would just be off playing in fucking Inner Circle or Bait right now, wouldn't he, if he had to just be in. So I actually, this is one of those ones where in the short term I don't mind it. And also, by the way, I think if this doesn't, you only give this one season, mate. You only give it till the end of the year. If it doesn't work, you just say, okay, my bad. You go a different route. So I actually think Maui was fair to put it in ugly instead of just bad. I agree that there's a lot of like traditional reasons it shouldn't work, but I also think you had to do something. You had to sort of say fuck it and throw a grenade in there somehow, I think. So I don't hate it. And low-key, I actually just, because I like flashy offers, I hope this guy ends up being better and shows some of his potential. He did look like he was cool at certain times. Right, for the last...
the last thing is just simply that I think Wrinkle, what he has shown in glimpses at NIP, I do like the angle that it's just worth taking the risk. The whole overall point is just that I think they're just going to have to clean up some other stuff, like the Hunter IGL and Nerd stuff. But yeah, no, we covered it.
Right, for the last point of the show, remember, this is ugly, not bad. It's actually going to refer to something I said earlier, right? It's bad enough that BetBoom had this run to the playoffs of the major and then they don't sign fl0m. But then, as people will have seen, since the last week and a half has been this drama of even BC Game, well, like, we don't technically have the fifth side, so no one knows. I was hoping he was one of the names that might be on the BC Game fifth one. Like, the mzinho one's cool. That's like out of nowhere for me. But if you'd have told me fl0m is joining there, like, mate, he's already played with, like, Russian speakers before. He's played in international teams before. He's a guy that makes shit happen. Again, another one of those gambles you take for an explosive player. I think he's a pretty cool player. I enjoy watching his game. The sad thing about both the BetBoom and the BC Game thing is, it's implied that this fucker is just trapped in Virtus.pro, mate. And if you don't know, Virtus.pro has a team right now. A lot of people don't know this. It's just a semi-irrelevant Russian team. It's not terrible, but it's not any. You'll never see them at tier 1 LAN, as far as I can tell. So if he's just trapped, and even worse, he's trapped on the bench waiting for people to sign him, boys, these were the two teams that were going to sign you. You've just done the run with BetBoom. They even beat Vitality with you. And then with BC Game, they need talent. They need people that are good. If those teams can't afford to buy you for the buyout, I'm really worried this guy, because if you don't know, he apparently has a really long contract. I'm really worried he just sits on a fucking shelf Dexter stuff like a year and a half now and doesn't do anything and doesn't even play CS. And he's also really young, if people don't know. I think I'll look it up, but I think he's only like 21 or 22 or something like that. I think he's a fairly young guy. He's 21 years old. So the idea that person's sort of trapped in a contract prison, but where you don't even play CS, I think that just blows. I put it as ugly, but I just think it's a rough spot. What do you think, fl0m?
I think that there was no fucking way in hell fl0m was going to play with Electronic again. Are you fucking crazy? Ain't no way he was going into that roster. I'm pretty sure Electronic is like why fl0m is pretty much in the situation that he's in. Is like, you know, outside looking in, that's kind of what it looked like, to, at least to me. I'm not like an expert necessarily to have some in, but like using some, you know, the outside influence that we have, or like looking into it, it's like, yeah, Electronic doesn't want to play with him. So I don't think that was ever going to. But I do agree with you that, like, I mean, I just think in general, it's just the VP organization just seems like a horrible place to be. I mean, we've not heard any good things being said about playing for that org. Nobody wants to be there. And I think at the end of the day, they're just keeping them in that contract as long as they can to see if somebody buys them. And that is a shame. That is ugly. Like, that's just ugly that we know how talented this guy was, how I don't want to sit here and pretend like he was going to be Donk, but like he was also very much touted as a player. Like, he could have been a very great player that like we would know about, and he might just get stuck into irrelevancy onto the VP bench. And yeah, I mean, this org isn't already known to be great to play for, and then you mix in like a name like BetBoom, like I was saying earlier. I imagine they probably just demanded a stupid fucking number, like, oh, you're BetBoom, just give me $1 million for fl0m.
Put it this way, the way the BC Game one was described was, it said they could have signed him, but that the buyout didn't make sense. Guys, you've heard the story before. They paid millions for the Saw core, so how high is this fucking buyout if it doesn't make sense for BC Game? That must be crazy. That sounds like you asked for $2 million for this guy or something insane, you know?
Yeah, it's just like a number that just doesn't, it just doesn't make sense. Like, they probably are just asking for like $1 million for fl0m, who's played like 2 matches. Yeah. Your roster was shit, and you basically made him look worse than when you bought him. And you have him on this crazy long contract, and instead of just releasing him, you're trying to min-max his contract out of anybody. And the two people that are interested, like, I didn't follow the BC game as much. I'm just shocked that him and Electronic would ever hook up again. But the fact that it's a crypto casino and a gambling site, they probably just asked way too much. And then, but those are the most likely landing spots, like you said. I can't imagine. I mean, maybe bait, unlikely, but maybe. I don't know.
And these orgs don't have money like that, I'm pretty sure, so I don't think you're going anywhere, mate. Yeah.
Well, I imagine the buyout number changes based on who's talking to them, is my point. And,
I see.
Yeah. And VP's not in a place where they're going to be doing their players any favors. So we're just probably, I think your ugly point is spot on. He's fucked. I mean, like, fl0m is just going to probably be stuck in contract prison. I normally don't like that term, because I feel like at the end of the day, individuals do make their own choices. And I think that term used to be used correctly, and then as contracts progressed and as things evolved, I think that term continued, and it's kind of bullshit. It's just like people regretting choices and contracts that they've signed, which is like, I don't like it as much, but this one actually makes sense. This actually is contract prison. Like, they clearly have no intention of using this guy on their roster. They signed him to a crazy long contract with the intent of probably building up that last roster they had. And instead of just cutting their losses and letting him go, they're just trying to actually sell him to the highest bidder, which, like, what are we doing? Like you're not, nobody's going to pay it. You're not getting any money for it. Like, what are we doing? You're just, so I don't know. VP as an org, just, it's a shame what it's kind of turned into is really also the uglier point. I feel like of this is just, it sucks because I'm older. One of my favorite teams is the Virtus.pro, man. It was just so much fun to watch.
Yeah,
and
iconic team.
Now somebody mentions VP and I'm just like,
Yes.
like I don't want to watch the team. I'm not interested in what they're doing. I don't think what they're doing is good. I've never heard good things about how you treat your players. Like it's just kind of like a stain. And that's truly ugly. Like you throw in fl0m plus how the org is viewed now. It's just all ugly. And I hope he gets out, but I hope they just release him. That's the only positive you can get out of this is they just release him from his contract and let him do his thing, because unfortunately, even for him now, if he doesn't get onto a team in the next few months, the way the Counter-Strike world works, he's just going to have to work his way up again, which is just kind of a shame considering how good he was when he went to VP and then what he showed on BetBoom to just immediately be put in and then just basically pushed under again. Sucks. Like you'd want to root for a guy like that. You want it to go well.
The last point that you bring up, fl0m, with the fact that it sort of, it's just leaving a bad taste in everybody's mouth regarding VP. I guess my biggest qualm with this is I don't really understand why he's just not playing right now for the VP roster. I know they're just slogging it right now through tier 2, tier 3 Eastern European lands or whatever it is, but I just don't get what's happening there and why he's not competing with them. I don't know if that was if that's going to change soon, because he's no longer on loan to BetBoom, I guess. So I would hope to see him back in action relatively soon, but by and large, the biggest the greatest ugliness here is just that he's not playing for a team that's competing in the top 50, because clearly his skills merit it. That was more than apparent at the most recent major. Frequently bailed them out of a lot of difficult rounds. And I don't feel like he was given a fair shot when he was playing on the Virtus.pro with Electronic berating him. So he's shown that he's not that player that he was on that team, where that one was just more Electronic becoming Egotronic before our very eyes, as opposed, and I don't think really anybody should be scorned from the top scene for what happened there, other than Electronic, actually. I think he's the only one that should have come out worse for wear for how that team performed. And for fl0m in particular, it's crazy because this guy, he speaks English really well.
He used to be on GamerLegion, remember?
Yeah, so I mean, there's the options would really be pretty damn limitless for him. So it's just extremely disappointing. Also on OG, briefly too.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
Those kind of players that can speak both Russian and English are basically the most valuable players you can have in Counter-Strike right now. And the fact that he's only 21 is probably like the only bright side to this, that he's so young that he'll probably still turn out just fine, and now it's just a waiting game until his contract ends.